What if one voice rising from the deserts of ancient Arabia changed the course of history, from a quiet cave where the first revelation was received to a message that united divided tribes and spread across continents? This is the story of Islam and its prophets as it is understood by Muslims. It is a story of faith, struggle, compassion, and the search for truth, one that has shaped civilizations and continues to influence billions of lives today. But beyond history and belief, one question remains. What is it that gives a single idea the power to transform humanity across generations? The Arabian Peninsula, a vast expanse of sun-baked rock and shifting sands, stretched under an eternal blue sky, a land both unforgiving and breathtakingly beautiful. Here, life was etched into the very landscape, dictated by the rhythm of the oases and the scarce precious water. For centuries, its inhabitants had navigated this harsh reality, forging a society deeply rooted in tribal allegiances and ancient traditions. Survival often hinged on the strength of these familial bonds, creating a complex tapestry of loyalty and rivalry that defined daily existence. Amidst this rugged terrain, a city emerged as a beacon of commerce and faith, Mecca. Situated at the crossroads of vital trade routes connecting the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, Mecca buzzed with the energy of caravans laden with spices, perfumes, and textiles. Its markets were vibrant hubs of exchange, where merchants from distant lands mingled with local tribesmen, their voices echoing through the narrow streets. Yet, Mecca was more than just a trading post. It was a spiritual heartland. At its center stood the Kaaba, an ancient cube-shaped structure revered by all. Within its sacred walls and surrounding courtyard, hundreds of idols stood sentinel, each representing a deity worshipped by the various tribes who made their pilgrimage to this holy site. The air around the Kaaba was thick with the murmur of prayers, the scent of incense, and the palpable devotion of a people seeking connection with the divine, albeit through a multitude of forms. Into this intricate world, a child named Muhammad was born. His arrival in the bustling city of Mecca was not marked by fanfare but by the quiet unfolding of destiny within a society that was both profoundly spiritual and deeply fractured. While the Kaaba drew pilgrims from across the peninsula, offering a semblance of unity, the underlying reality was one of constant tension. Blood feuds were common, justice often swift and brutal, and the plight of the poor and vulnerable frequently overlooked in the pursuit of wealth and power. The established order, though outwardly grand, carried within it the seeds of discontent. A subtle but pervasive yearning for something more profound began to stir among certain individuals. The worship of countless idols, while deeply ingrained, left many with a sense of incompleteness, a feeling that the true essence of the divine remained elusive. Hidden behind a veil of stone figures, they observed the vastness of the desert, the majesty of the stars, and the intricate balance of nature, and wondered if there wasn't a singular, all-encompassing truth that governed it all. This spiritual void, felt by a growing number of Meccans, created a silent anticipation, a quiet hunger for a message that could transcend tribal divisions and offer a clearer path to understanding the universe and their place within it. Thus, the stage was set in this desolate yet vibrant landscape. The ancient traditions, the bustling trade, the myriad gods, and the unspoken longing for a deeper truth all converged in Mecca. It was a place ripe for transformation, awaiting a voice that could cut through the din of polytheistic worship and the clamor of tribal strife. A voice that would ultimately reshape not only the Arabian Peninsula, but the course of human history itself. The dawn of a new era, though imperceptible to most, was quietly breaking over the desert horizon, promising a message that would echo across time. In this expectant atmosphere, amidst the bustling markets and the quiet contemplation of the desert's edge, Muhammad ibn Abdullah was born around the year 570 CE. His lineage was noble, tracing back to the Quraysh tribe, the dominant and influential clan of Mecca, and more specifically to the Banu Hashim, a respected but not immensely wealthy subclan. His father Abdullah had passed away before his birth, leaving his mother Amina to raise him in a society where tribal connections and male protection were paramount. This early loss immediately set him apart, marking him as an orphan, a status that often brought vulnerability in a fiercely hierarchical society. His early years were shaped by this profound absence. Following the custom of the time, the infant Muhammad was sent to live with a Bedouin foster mother, Halima al-Sa'diyah in the desert. This period, lasting several years, was more than just a custom. It was a formative experience. The desert environment instilled in him a deep appreciation for nature, a sense of resilience, and an immersion in the pure, unadulterated Arabic language and tribal customs. Far from the urban complexities of Mecca, he learned to herd sheep, to navigate by the stars, and to understand the rhythms of a life dictated by the harsh yet beautiful landscape. This upbringing in the heart of the Arabian wilderness provided a stark contrast to the idolatry and commercialism of the city, perhaps subtly influencing his later spiritual outlook. Upon returning to Mecca, tragedy struck again. His mother, Amina, died when he was only 6 years old, leaving him an orphan twice over. The responsibility for his upbringing then fell to his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, a revered elder and leader of the Quraysh. Abdul Muttalib, a figure of great wisdom and integrity, provided young Muhammad with love and stability, yet this too was short-lived. Just 2 years later, his grandfather also passed away. These repeated losses, particularly in such a tender age, could have easily embittered or broken a child. Instead, they seemed to cultivate within Muhammad a profound sense of empathy, a deep understanding of human suffering, and a quiet strength. After his grandfather's death, Muhammad came under the care of his uncle, Abu Talib, who, despite his own modest means, embraced his nephew with unwavering affection and protection. Abu Talib was a merchant, and as Muhammad grew into adolescence, he began to accompany his uncle on trade caravans, traveling across the Arabian Peninsula and even into Syria. These journeys were invaluable. They exposed him to different cultures, diverse peoples, and various religious traditions, including Christianity and Judaism, which were prevalent in the northern trade routes. He observed their practices, their scriptures, and their monotheistic beliefs, contrasting them with the polytheistic rituals of Mecca. These experiences broadened his worldview, sharpening his observational skills and deepening his contemplation of the spiritual landscape of the region. As a young man, Muhammad quickly earned a reputation for his impeccable character. He was known for his honesty, trustworthiness, and fair dealings, qualities that were highly prized in the often cutthroat world of Meccan commerce. People began to call him Al-Amin, the trustworthy, and Al-Sadiq, the truthful. His integrity was such that disputes were often brought to him for mediation, and his judgments were widely respected. This reputation was not merely anecdotal, it was a cornerstone of his public identity, establishing a foundation of credibility that would prove crucial in his later prophetic mission. Even before receiving any divine revelation, Muhammad was already a figure of moral authority and quiet leadership within his community, a testament to his innate character forged through hardship and experience. It was this sterling reputation that attracted the attention of Khadija bint Khuwaylid, a wealthy and respected businesswoman in Mecca. Khadija, significantly older than Muhammad, was a successful merchant in her own right, managing a large caravan trade. Impressed by tales of his honesty and skill, she hired him to manage her affairs and lead her caravans. Muhammad excelled in this role, proving himself not only trustworthy but also highly capable. Their professional relationship soon blossomed into a deep personal connection. Despite societal norms and the age difference, Khadija proposed marriage to Muhammad. Their union was a profound partnership, marked by mutual respect, love, and unwavering support. Khadija provided him with emotional stability, financial security, and a domestic sanctuary that allowed him to pursue his spiritual inclinations without the immediate pressures of daily survival. She bore him several children, though tragically, only their daughter Fatima would survive into adulthood. During his marriage to Khadija, Muhammad often retreated to the solitude of Mount Hira, a rugged peak overlooking Mecca. In a cave known as Hira, he would spend days and nights in contemplation, meditating on the nature of existence, the rampant idolatry of his city, and the spiritual yearning that seemed to permeate the air. He sought solace and understanding, grappling with the moral decay he witnessed, the social injustices, and the fragmented spiritual landscape of his people. This was a period of intense introspection, a quiet preparation for the monumental task that lay ahead. He was not yet a prophet, but a seeker, a man deeply troubled by the state of the world around him, searching for a truth that transcended the limitations of human understanding and tribal loyalties. His journey through orphanhood, trade, and profound personal reflection had sculpted him into a vessel ready to receive a message that would forever alter the course of human history. His early life, however, was marked by profound loss and a constant struggle against the harsh realities of 7th century Arabia. Born an orphan, his father Abdullah died before his birth, and his mother Amina passed away when he was just 6 years old. This double tragedy left a deep imprint on the young Muhammad, shaping his empathy for the vulnerable and his understanding of hardship. Following his mother's death, he was taken in by his paternal grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib, a respected elder and chieftain of the Banu Hashim clan within the powerful Quraysh tribe. Abd al-Muttalib, already an old man, cherished his grandson, providing him with a brief period of stability and affection. However, this comfort was short-lived, as Abd al-Muttalib himself died just 2 years later, when Muhammad was 8. The young orphan then came under the care of his uncle Abu Talib, a man of modest means but immense integrity. Abu Talib, despite his financial struggles, loved Muhammad deeply and treated him as his own son, often prioritizing his nephew's well-being over his own children's. This period with Abu Talib was formative, instilling in Muhammad a strong work ethic and a direct understanding of the daily lives of ordinary Meccans. He learnt the value of resilience, the importance of family bonds, and the harsh realities of economic survival in a society where status and wealth often dictated one's fate. His character began to solidify, marked by an unusual blend of sensitivity and unwavering resolve. From a young age, Muhammad displayed a remarkable disposition. He was quiet, reflective, and possessed an innate sense of justice that stood in stark contrast to the often brutal customs of his time. He was known for his honesty in dealings, his kindness to the poor, and his thoughtful demeanor. Even as a child, he was never seen engaging in the frivolous games or mischievous acts common among his peers. Instead, he would often retreat into himself, observing the world around him with a keen, discerning eye. People began to notice his exceptional qualities, recognizing in him an integrity that was rare and compelling. This early reputation for truthfulness and reliability would become a cornerstone of his public persona, laying the groundwork for the trust he would later inspire in his community. As he grew older, Muhammad took on various responsibilities to help his uncle Abu Talib. One of his earliest occupations was that of a shepherd, tending flocks in the rugged hills surrounding Mecca. This solitary work provided him with ample time for contemplation, allowing him to connect with nature and ponder the vastness of the desert landscape. The shepherd's life also taught him patience, vigilance, and the responsibility of caring for a flock, skills that mirrored the leadership and guidance he would later offer to a nascent community. He learned to navigate the unpredictable elements, to protect the vulnerable, and to understand the rhythms of life and death in a harsh environment. These quiet years in the wilderness further honed his reflective nature and deepened his spiritual introspection. Beyond the pastures, Muhammad also joined his uncle on trade caravans, traveling extensively across the Arabian Peninsula and into the Levant. These journeys were invaluable, exposing him to diverse cultures, different ways of life, and the various religious traditions prevalent in the region. He encountered Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians, observing their practices and listening to their stories of prophets, scriptures, and divine revelations. These experiences broadened his worldview beyond the polytheistic idolatry common in Mecca, sparking a profound curiosity about monotheistic beliefs and the concept of a single, all-powerful God. He witnessed the bustling markets of Syria, the ancient cities of Palestine, and the intricate networks of trade that connected the known world. These travels expanded his understanding of human society, its complexities, and its diverse spiritual quests, preparing him for a role that would transcend tribal boundaries. It was during these years of burgeoning adulthood that Muhammad's reputation as Al-Amin, the trustworthy, truly solidified. Merchants entrusted him with their goods, knowing he would deal fairly and honestly. Disputes were often brought to him for mediation, his judgments respected for their impartiality and wisdom. His integrity was so widely acknowledged that it transcended clan loyalties, a remarkable feat in a society often fractured by tribal rivalries. This standing as a man of impeccable character did not go unnoticed by Khadija bint Khuwaylid, a prominent and highly respected businesswoman in Mecca. Khadija, a widow of considerable wealth and influence, managed a successful caravan trade, a rarity for a woman in that era. Impressed by Muhammad's reputation, she sought him out to manage her affairs and lead her caravans on distant journeys. Muhammad excelled in this role, proving himself not only trustworthy but also exceptionally capable in business dealings. His expeditions for Khadija were consistently profitable, a testament to his skill and diligence. Their professional relationship soon deepened into a profound personal connection, Despite being 15 years his senior and having been married twice before, Khadijah recognized a unique goodness and spiritual depth in Muhammad. She was drawn to his quiet strength, his unwavering honesty, and his compassionate nature. Breaking with societal norms, it was Khadijah who proposed marriage to Muhammad, a testament to her independent spirit and her deep admiration for him. Their union was a cornerstone of his life, providing him with unwavering emotional support, financial stability, and a domestic sanctuary that allowed him to pursue his spiritual inclinations without the immediate pressures of daily survival. Khadijah became his first and most steadfast supporter, believing in him implicitly and offering comfort and counsel throughout their 25 years of marriage. She bore him several children, though tragically only their daughter Fatima would survive into adulthood. During his marriage to Khadijah, Muhammad often sought solace and solitude in the rugged landscape surrounding Mecca. He would retreat to a cave on Mount Hira, a prominent peak overlooking the bustling city. There, amidst the silence of the mountains, he would spend days and nights in deep contemplation. He wrestled with the moral decay he witnessed in Meccan society, the rampant idolatry, the injustice towards the poor and marginalized, the infanticide of female babies, and the constant tribal feuds that plagued the city. He observed the stark contrast between the city's material wealth and its spiritual emptiness. This was a period of intense introspection, a profound spiritual yearning for a truth that transcended the limitations of human understanding and the superficialities of tribal loyalties. He was not yet a prophet, but a seeker, a man deeply troubled by the state of the world around him, searching for a divine guidance that could illuminate the darkness and bring order to chaos. His journey through orphanhood, trade, and profound personal reflection had sculpted him into a vessel ready to receive a message that would forever alter the course of human history. One night, in the year 610 CE, during one of these solitary retreats to the cave of Hira, a pivotal event unfolded that would irrevocably change Muhammad's life and in turn the world. As he meditated in the profound stillness, an overwhelming presence manifested before him. This was the Archangel Gabriel, a being of immense light and power, who commanded Muhammad to read. Muhammad, startled and bewildered, replied that he could not read, for he was an unlettered man. The angel repeated the command, pressing him with a force that left him breathless, and again Muhammad confessed his inability. A third time Gabriel insisted, and then recited the first 5 verses of what would become the Quran, beginning with, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not." This experience was terrifying and overwhelming for Muhammad. He returned home to Khadijah in a state of profound shock, trembling and deeply shaken. He recounted the encounter, fearing he had either gone mad or was possessed. Khadijah, with her characteristic wisdom and unwavering support, comforted him. She reassured him that a man of his character who always spoke the truth, upheld kinship ties, bore the burdens of others, hosted guests, and helped those in distress, could not be afflicted by such evil. She then sought the counsel of her cousin Waraka ibn Nawfal, a learned Christian scholar who had deep knowledge of scriptures and prophecy. Upon hearing Muhammad's account, Waraka immediately recognized the significance of the event, declaring that this was the same angel Gabriel who had appeared to Moses. He foretold that Muhammad was to be the prophet of his people, though he also warned of the persecution he would inevitably face. This initial revelation marked the beginning of Muhammad's prophetic mission, but it was not followed by immediate further revelations. A period of silence known as the Fatra ensued, lasting for several months. This interval was a time of immense anxiety and doubt for Muhammad, as he yearned for further divine communication, unsure if his experience had been a singular event or the start of something greater. He struggled with the weight of what had transpired, grappling with the implications of being chosen as a messenger. The pause served as a test of his resolve and patience, deepening his conviction and preparing him for the arduous journey ahead. Eventually the revelations resumed, bringing forth more verses of the Quran and gradually clarifying the message he was to convey to humanity. These subsequent revelations often addressed specific questions, provided guidance on ethical conduct, and elaborated on the nature of God and the purpose of existence. One night in 610 CE, during a solitary retreat to the cave of Hira, a pivotal event unfolded, irrevocably changing Muhammad's life and the world. As he meditated, the archangel Gabriel manifested, commanding him to read. Muhammad, startled, replied he could not read, being unlettered. The angel repeated the command, pressing him with force. A third time, Gabriel insisted, then recited the first 5 verses of what would become the Quran. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. Terrified, Muhammad returned home to Khadijah, trembling and shaken. He recounted the encounter, fearing madness or possession. Khadijah, with unwavering support, comforted him, assuring him his character precluded such affliction. She sought counsel from her cousin Waraka ibn Nawfal, a learned Christian scholar. Waraka recognized the event's significance, declaring it was Gabriel who had appeared to Moses and foretold Muhammad's prophethood, warning of inevitable persecution. This initial revelation marked the beginning of Muhammad's prophetic mission, but was followed by a period of silence known as the Fatra. Lasting several months, this interval caused Muhammad immense anxiety and doubt, as he yearned for further divine communication. He struggled with the implications of being chosen as a messenger. The pause tested his resolve, deepening his conviction and preparing him for the arduous journey ahead. Eventually, revelations resumed, bringing more Quranic verses and clarifying his message to humanity. The early days of Islam saw its message spread quietly. Muhammad initially shared revelations with his closest circle. His first convert was his wife Khadijah, whose immediate acceptance validated his experience. Next, his young cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib embraced Islam, followed by Zayd ibn Haritha, a freed slave. Then came Abu Bakr, a respected merchant and close friend, whose influence proved crucial. These initial converts, the As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun, formed the bedrock of the Muslim community. As adherents grew, the message extended beyond Muhammad's immediate circle. Drawn from various strata, these converts united in belief in one God and rejection of Mecca's polytheistic practices. They met secretly, often at the house of Arqam ibn Abi al-Arqam, to learn, recite the Quran and pray. This clandestine worship nurtured the fragile community, strengthening bonds before public scrutiny. The teachings emphasized monotheism, social justice, and moral rectitude, challenging Mecca's established order. The period of secrecy ended after 3 years, when Muhammad received a divine command to openly proclaim his message. This marked a pivotal shift to a public call. He addressed his clan, the Banu Hashim, presenting his mission, while his uncle Abu Talib offered protection. Another uncle, Abu Lahab, vehemently rejected his claims. This public declaration directly challenged Mecca's religious and economic foundations, which thrived on pilgrimage to the idol-filled Kaaba. The idea of a single, unseen God threatened those who profited from idol worship and derived authority from the existing religious hierarchy. The Meccan elite initially dismissed Muhammad with ridicule, calling him madman, poet, or sorcerer. However, as converts grew, particularly among the less privileged, their dismissiveness turned to active opposition. The Quraysh tribe saw Islam as a direct threat to their authority, traditions, and economic interests, fearing that abolishing idol worship would diminish Mecca's status as a pilgrimage center. This fear led to a systematic campaign of persecution. Persecution of early Muslims took brutal forms. Economic boycotts isolated them, causing severe hardship. Physical abuse was common. Believers were publicly humiliated, beaten, and tortured. Slaves who converted, lacking tribal protection, suffered horrific treatment. Bilal ibn Rabah, an Abyssinian slave, was tortured with heavy stones under the scorching sun, yet steadfastly affirmed Ahad Ahad, one God. Sumayya bint Hayat, an elderly slave woman, became Islam's first martyr, brutally killed for her faith. Meccan leaders attempted to negotiate, offering Muhammad wealth and power if he abandoned his preaching. He famously refused, stating he could not abandon his mission. This unwavering commitment infuriated his adversaries, who intensified efforts. The persecution caused immense suffering, testing faith and resilience. Despite relentless pressure, the community remained steadfast, their conviction deepened by trials. This period forged strong solidarity, laying groundwork for a community bound by faith. As Meccan persecution intensified, Muhammad advised some followers to migrate to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia. This was a difficult decision, meaning leaving homes and livelihoods. Abyssinia was chosen for its just and tolerant Christian king, Negus Ashama ibn Abjar. In 615 CE, the first group of 15 Muslims embarked across the Red Sea, seeking safety and freedom to practice their faith. This was followed by a larger migration of over 100 Muslims, including Uthman ibn Affan and Muhammad's daughter Ruqayya. Furious, Meccan leaders sent Amr ibn al-As and Abdullah ibn Abi Rabi'a to Abyssinia with gifts, aiming to persuade the Negus to return the refugees. When questioned, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's cousin, eloquently explained Islam's tenets, contrasting them with Meccan idolatry. He recited Quranic verses, deeply moving the Christian king, who recognized similarities to his own scriptures. Impressed, the Negus refused to hand them over, offering protection. This refuge saved lives, provided a haven for the community to strengthen, and demonstrated Islam's potential for acceptance beyond Mecca. Despite the Abyssinian failure, Meccan leaders remained determined to crush Islam. Their frustration led to a severe economic and social boycott against the Banu Hashim and Banu Abd al-Muttalib clans, Muhammad's kin, initiated around 617 CE. This drastic measure aimed to isolate and starve the clans into submission, or force Muhammad to abandon his mission. A pact, hung in the Kaaba, stipulated no trade, marriage, or association with these clans. For 3 years, Muhammad, his family, and followers were confined to a ravine outside Mecca, enduring extreme hardship. Food dwindled, forcing them to eat leaves and roots. Despite suffering, their resolve remained unbroken. The boycott cemented solidarity and deepened commitment to Muhammad's message, fostering empathy. Eventually, sympathetic Meccans, finding the boycott inhumane, intervened. The discovery that termites had eaten the pact, leaving only in the name of God, led to its lifting. This period of suffering solidified the early Muslim community's foundations, demonstrating extraordinary resilience. The boycott's lifting was followed by Am al-Huzn, the Year of Sorrow, around 619 CE, a period of profound personal loss for Muhammad. Within a short span, he lost his beloved wife Khadija and his protective uncle Abu Talib. Khadija, his first convert and emotional anchor, passed away after illness, leaving a deep void. Her unwavering support was instrumental in early prophethood. Shortly after, his uncle Abu Talib died. Though never formally embracing Islam, Abu Talib had been Muhammad's guardian and staunch protector against Quraysh hostility. His death removed Muhammad's primary tribal protection, leaving him vulnerable. The loss of these two pivotal figures left Muhammad exposed and grief-stricken, personally and politically. The Year of Sorrow marked a low point, testing his resilience and faith as challenges mounted, and his path forward seemed uncertain without his most trusted companions. With Khadija and Abu Talib gone, and Meccan hostility continuing, Muhammad realized his mission could not thrive in his hometown. The intensified persecution presented an opportunity for Meccan leadership to suppress his message. He began seeking new avenues and allies beyond Mecca, hoping for a place where Islam could be openly practiced and followers could find safety. His first attempt was a journey to Taif, a city known for its fertile lands and the powerful Thaqif tribe. Accompanied by his freed slave Zayd ibn Haritha, Muhammad hoped to gain support and preach Islam. However, his efforts in Taif met outright rejection and extreme hostility. Leaders not only refused to listen but incited townspeople to pelt him with stones, driving him and Zayd out of the city. Severely injured, they found refuge in an orchard. This humiliating rejection, adding to the previous year's sorrow, demonstrated that Islam was not readily accepted by other powerful cities. Despite physical and emotional pain, Muhammad found solace in prayer, reaffirming his dependence on God and commitment to his mission. This experience taught him valuable lessons about spreading faith and the need for strategic alliances, underscoring his early followers' unwavering loyalty. In the earliest days, after Muhammad's first encounters with the divine, the message of Islam was not a public declaration but a hushed secret, shared among those closest to him. It began in the intimate circles of family and trusted friends, a quiet revolution taking root in the heart of Mecca. The initial converts were drawn not by grand pronouncements or public displays, but by the profound sincerity and unwavering conviction of Muhammad himself. They saw in him the same trustworthy character, Al-Amin, that had defined his life before prophethood, now imbued with a divine purpose. This small burgeoning community was bound by a shared radical belief in a singular God, a stark contrast to the polytheistic tapestry of Meccan society. Among the very first to embrace this new faith was Khadija, Muhammad's devoted wife, whose unwavering support and immediate affirmation of his prophetic calling had been a cornerstone of his early mission. Her belief was foundational, providing both emotional and spiritual solace during a period of immense uncertainty. Following her, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's young cousin and ward, became one of the earliest male converts. Living under Muhammad's roof, Ali witnessed the Prophet's character daily and readily accepted the truth of his message. His youth and courage would prove invaluable in the years to come. Another pivotal figure was Zayd ibn Haritha, a freed slave who Muhammad had adopted. Zayd's loyalty and deep affection for Muhammad led him to embrace Islam without hesitation, demonstrating that the message transcended social hierarchies and tribal affiliations. These early adherents, though few in number, formed the bedrock of the nascent Muslim community, their faith a quiet testament to the profound impact of Muhammad's revelations. Perhaps the most significant early convert outside of Muhammad's immediate household was Abu Bakr, a respected merchant and close friend known for his integrity and calm demeanor. His conversion was a monumental event, lending considerable credibility to the fledgling movement. Abu Bakr's influence and social standing allowed him to bring other prominent individuals into the fold, expanding the circle of believers beyond the Prophet's immediate family. Through his efforts, figures like Uthman ibn Affan, Abdal Rahman ibn Auf, Talia ibn Ubayd Allah, and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, all respected members of Meccan society, came to accept Islam. These early converts were not easily persuaded. They were individuals of intellect and standing, who after careful consideration and personal conviction chose to align themselves with Muhammad's revolutionary message. Their embrace of Islam was a testament to the compelling nature of the message itself, delivered through a man they knew and trusted implicitly. The fundamental tenets of this new faith were strikingly simple yet profoundly transformative. At its core was Tawhid, the absolute monotheism, the uncompromising belief in the oneness of God, Allah. This concept rejected the pervasive idol worship of the Kaaba and the pantheon of deities revered by the Quraysh. It declared that there was no God but Allah, and that worship was due to him alone. This meant a complete dismantling of the existing religious and social order, which was deeply intertwined with idolatry and the veneration of ancestral gods. The message also emphasized the direct relationship between humanity and God, without intermediaries, and a moral code centered on justice, compassion, and accountability for one's actions in this life and the next. These principles, whispered from person to person, began to challenge the deeply entrenched traditions and power structures of Meccan society. The quiet spread of Islam during these initial years was a testament to the power of personal conviction and shared belief. There were no public sermons, no grand assemblies, only intimate conversations, earnest discussions, and the quiet recitation of the revealed verses. Each new convert became a living example of the faith, their transformed character and unwavering belief inspiring others. The message moved through kinship networks, friendships, and business relationships, touching individuals who were seeking a deeper truth, a more meaningful existence than the tribal rivalries and materialistic pursuits that dominated Meccan life. It was a gradual, organic growth, fueled by the intrinsic appeal of monotheism and the moral clarity it offered. However, even in these early covert stages, the seeds of opposition were being sown. The Quraysh elite, though perhaps not fully grasping the long-term implications, began to notice the subtle shifts within their society. The growing number of individuals abandoning ancestral gods for this new singular deity was a direct challenge to their religious authority and economic interests, which were heavily tied to the pilgrimage trade surrounding the Kaaba's idols. Whispers of dissent and accusations of abandoning tradition began to circulate. While outright persecution had not yet begun, a palpable tension was emerging. The Meccan leaders, accustomed to absolute control, viewed any deviation from their established norms with suspicion and growing apprehension. They saw the rise of this new faith not just as a religious difference, but as a direct threat to their power, prestige, and way of life. The quiet revolution was beginning to stir the ancient foundations of Mecca, setting the stage for the dramatic conflicts that lay ahead. The initial resistance, therefore, escalated from whispers to outright hostility as the message of Islam gained more adherents. The Quraysh, a confederation of tribes that dominated Mecca, felt their economic and social order directly threatened. Their wealth was inextricably linked to the polytheistic pilgrimages to the Kaaba, a central sanctuary housing numerous idols, each representing a deity revered by different tribes. Muhammad's call to monotheism, the worship of one god, directly undermined this lucrative system. Furthermore, the egalitarian message of Islam, which proclaimed the equality of all believers regardless of social status, challenged the rigid class structure of Meccan society where power and privilege were concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy families. This ideological clash fueled a growing animosity towards the nascent Muslim community. The persecution took many forms, ranging from social ostracism to physical torture, each designed to break the resolve of the early Muslims and force them to recant their new faith. These were not random acts of violence, but a calculated campaign orchestrated by the Meccan elite. Initially, the pressure was subtle. Prominent Muslims faced public humiliation and ridicule. They were called names, their beliefs mocked, and their characters slandered. Merchants who embraced Islam found their businesses boycotted, leading to severe financial hardship. Families were torn apart as some members clung to the old ways while others embraced the new, creating deep divisions within households. This social and economic pressure was particularly effective in a society where tribal loyalty and communal ties were paramount. However, the most severe forms of persecution were reserved for the most vulnerable members of Meccan society, the slaves and the poor. These individuals, lacking tribal protection or social standing, were subjected to horrific brutality. One of the most heart-wrenching examples is that of Bilal ibn Rabah, an Abyssinian slave. His master, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, a prominent leader of the Quraysh, would drag him out into the scorching desert heat at midday, place a heavy rock on his chest, and demand that he renounce Allah and worship the idols of Lat and Uzza. Despite the excruciating pain, Bilal would famously respond with Ahad Ahad, meaning one, affirming his unwavering belief in the singular God. His resilience became a powerful symbol of faith against oppression. Similarly, Sumayya bint Khayyat, an elderly slave woman, and her husband Yasir, along with their son Ammar, endured unimaginable torment. Sumayya became the first martyr in Islam, brutally killed by Abu Jahl, another fierce opponent of the Prophet. Her death served as a stark reminder of the deadly seriousness of the conflict. While many of his followers suffered intensely, Prophet Muhammad himself was largely protected from direct physical harm during this early period, primarily due to the strong tribal protection afforded to him by his uncle, Abu Talib, the respected leader of the Banu Hashim clan. In Meccan society, tribal loyalty was a sacred bond, and an attack on a member of a clan was considered an attack on the entire clan, often leading to blood feuds. Abu Talib, though not embracing Islam himself, steadfastly defended his nephew against the increasingly hostile Quraysh. His influence and standing prevented the Meccan leaders from openly assaulting Muhammad. However, this protection did not extend to Muhammad's message. The Quraysh employed various tactics to discredit him, spreading rumors that he was a madman, a sorcerer, or a poet possessed by jinn. They attempted to bribe him with wealth, power, and beautiful women, all in an effort to make him abandon his mission, but he consistently refused. As the persecution intensified and the Muslim community continued to grow, the Quraysh, frustrated by their inability to extinguish the new faith, resorted to an even more drastic measure: a complete economic and social boycott against the Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib clans to which Muhammad belonged, regardless of whether they were Muslim or not. This boycott, which began around 616 CE, was meticulously enforced. Marriages with members of these clans were forbidden, trade was halted, and all social interactions were severed. The decree was even written down and hung inside the Kaaba, signifying its solemnity and widespread agreement. For 3 agonizing years, Muhammad and his family, along with all those who stood by them, were forced to live in a desolate ravine outside Mecca, enduring severe hunger, thirst, and exposure. Their only sustenance came from sympathetic individuals who occasionally managed to smuggle food to them under the cover of darkness. The cries of starving children echoed through the valley, a testament to the harshness of the boycott. This period of immense suffering tested the resolve of the believers to their absolute limits, yet their faith remarkably remained unbroken. After years of quiet, clandestine preaching to a small circle of trusted companions, the moment arrived for Prophet Muhammad to openly declare his prophethood and invite the entire Meccan society to Islam. This pivotal shift occurred around the 4th year of his mission, after a divine revelation commanded him to proclaim what you have been commanded and turn away from the polytheists. It was a momentous decision, fraught with immense danger, as it meant directly challenging the entrenched religious, social, and economic order of Mecca. Muhammad ascended the hill of Safa, a prominent elevation near the Kaaba, and called out to the various clans of the Quraysh, gathering them as was customary for important announcements. He began by asking them if they would believe him if he told them that an army was hidden behind the hill, ready to attack. Unanimously, they affirmed his trustworthiness, acknowledging his lifelong reputation as Al-Amin, the truthful one. Then, with a voice filled with conviction, he declared that he was a messenger from God, warning them of a severe punishment if they did not abandon their idols and worship the one true God. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Abu Lahab, one of Muhammad's uncles and a fierce opponent, famously cursed him, shouting, "Perish you! Is this why you have gathered us?" This outburst set the tone for the fierce opposition that would characterize the Quraysh's response. The Meccan elite, custodians of the Kaaba and beneficiaries of its polytheistic pilgrimages, immediately perceived Muhammad's message as an existential threat. Their power, prestige, and prosperity were deeply intertwined with the idolatrous worship that Islam sought to dismantle. The idea of a single transcendent God accessible to all challenged their hierarchical social structure and the authority derived from their ancestral traditions. They found the concept of resurrection and accountability in an afterlife particularly unsettling, as it implied a judgment that transcended their earthly dominion. The egalitarian nature of Islam, which welcomed slaves and the poor alongside the wealthy and powerful, also threatened to upend their carefully constructed class system. The opposition quickly escalated beyond verbal abuse. The Quraysh employed a sophisticated and relentless campaign of persecution designed to break the spirit of the nascent Muslim community and extinguish the flame of Islam before it could fully ignite. Mockery and ridicule became common tools. Muhammad and his followers were derided as madmen, poets, sorcerers, and followers of a strange new cult. Children were encouraged to throw stones and dirt at the Prophet as he walked through the streets. His message was dismissed as tales of the ancients, mere fables he had supposedly copied from Jews and Christians. This psychological warfare aimed to isolate the believers and make them objects of public scorn. Beyond mockery, intimidation became a daily reality. Muslims found themselves ostracized from Meccan society. Their businesses were boycotted, their trade routes disrupted, and their social interactions severely curtailed. They were subjected to constant surveillance, with agents of the Quraysh reporting on their gatherings and activities. Threats of violence were commonplace, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The Quraysh also engaged in sophisticated propaganda, spreading rumors and misinformation about Muhammad and his teachings to dissuade potential converts and discredit Islam in the eyes of visiting tribes. They even attempted to bribe Muhammad with promises of wealth, power, and marriage to the most beautiful women if only he would abandon his mission. Each offer was met with an unwavering refusal, further infuriating his opponents. For the most vulnerable members of the community, especially those without tribal protection or those who were slaves, the persecution took a far more brutal turn. They faced severe physical abuse and torture. Bilal, an Abyssinian slave, was repeatedly taken to the scorching desert and had a heavy rock placed on his chest, being ordered to renounce Islam. Sumaya, an elderly slave woman, endured horrific torture until she became the first martyr in Islam, brutally killed by Abu Jahl for her unwavering faith. Her husband Yasir and their son Ammar also suffered terribly. These acts of extreme violence were meant to serve as a terrifying warning to anyone considering embracing the new faith. Despite this relentless onslaught, the early Muslims displayed an extraordinary steadfastness and resilience. Their faith, forged in the crucible of adversity, grew stronger with each trial. They found solace and strength in the verses of the Quran, which continually reminded them of God's omnipotence, justice, and ultimate reward for the patient and persevering. The Prophet Muhammad himself served as their ultimate example, enduring personal insults, threats, and the immense emotional burden of witnessing the suffering of his beloved followers. He encouraged them to remain firm, promising them paradise in the afterlife and reminding them that their trials were a test of their faith. Some, unable to bear the torture, feigned renunciation but remained Muslim in their hearts, a concession Islam allowed under duress. Others, like Bilal, faced their torment with defiance, their unwavering declarations of Ahad, Ahad, becoming a rallying cry for the oppressed. The emotional toll on Prophet Muhammad during this period was immense. He was a man of deep compassion, and witnessing his followers, many of whom were poor and vulnerable, endure such horrific suffering weighed heavily on his heart. He saw his companions mocked, beaten, starved, and even killed, all for the sake of the message he brought. The boycott in particular caused him profound anguish, as he watched his own family and clan members, including young children, suffer from hunger and exposure. He felt the weight of responsibility for their plight, even as he knew he was fulfilling a divine command. His close companion, Khadija, provided immense emotional support during these trying times, as did his uncle Abu Talib, whose unwavering protection, though without embracing Islam himself, prevented the Quraysh from directly harming Muhammad. However, the constant pressure, the pervasive hostility, and the deep sorrow for his suffering community were a heavy cross for the Prophet to bear. This period of intense persecution was a defining chapter in the early history of Islam, solidifying the resolve of the believers and demonstrating the profound human cost of challenging an established order. The 10th year of Muhammad's prophethood arrived, bringing with it a profound sorrow that would forever mark the nascent Muslim community. It was a year etched in history as Aam al-Huzn, the year of sorrow, and for good reason. Within a span of a few weeks, Muhammad suffered two devastating personal losses that compounded the already immense pressures of his mission. His beloved wife, Khadija, the steadfast rock who had supported him through every trial, believed in him when no one else did, and poured her entire being into nurturing the early faith, passed away. Her death was not merely the loss of a spouse, it was the loss of his most trusted confidante, his emotional anchor, and the first and most ardent supporter of his prophetic call. Khadija had been a source of immense comfort and strength, her presence a balm against the relentless hostility of the Quraysh. Her unwavering faith and practical support had been indispensable during the darkest hours, providing both spiritual solace and material sustenance. Following closely on the heels of Khadija's death, Muhammad's uncle Abu Talib also passed away. Abu Talib, though never formally embracing Islam, had been Muhammad's protector and guardian since childhood. His position as a respected elder of the Banu Hashim clan had shielded Muhammad from the worst excesses of Quraysh hostility. It was Abu Talib's influence that had prevented the Quraysh from taking more drastic measures against Muhammad, acting as a crucial buffer against their aggression. With his demise, Muhammad lost not only a revered family member, but also his primary shield against the escalating persecution. The death of these two pivotal figures left Muhammad vulnerable and exposed, both emotionally and politically. The Quraysh, sensing this newfound vulnerability, intensified their harassment, no longer restrained by Abu Talib's protective presence. The boycott, which had just been lifted, had already weakened the clan's resolve, and now, without Khadija's unwavering support and Abu Talib's political protection, the Prophet found himself in an even more precarious position. The world around him seemed to crumble, and the weight of his mission felt heavier than ever before. In the wake of the year of sorrow and the renewed hostility from the Quraysh, Muhammad realized that Mecca had become an increasingly untenable environment for the propagation of Islam. The message was being met with unyielding resistance, and the persecution of his followers was relentless. He began to look beyond Mecca for a more receptive audience and a safer haven for his community. His gaze turned towards Taif, a city approximately 60 miles southeast of Mecca, known for its fertile lands, fruit orchards, and a different tribal structure. Taif was home to the Thaqif tribe, a powerful and influential group, and Muhammad hoped that they might be more open to his message than the rigid traditionalists of Mecca. Accompanied by his adopted son Zayd ibn Haritha, Muhammad journeyed to Taif, carrying with him the hope of finding a new home for Islam. Upon arriving in Taif, Muhammad approached the leaders of the Thaqif tribe, presenting his message of monotheism and inviting them to embrace Islam. He spoke of God's unity, the importance of justice, and the accountability of all humanity. However, his hopes were quickly dashed. The leaders of Taif met his plea with disdain, mockery, and outright rejection. They not only refused to listen, but also incited the townspeople and their children to harass and stone Muhammad and Zayd as they left the city. This brutal expulsion from Taif was a deeply painful experience, both physically and emotionally. Stones rained down upon them, causing Muhammad to bleed profusely from his legs, while Zayd valiantly tried to shield him. The rejection was complete and humiliating, leaving Muhammad profoundly disheartened. He sought refuge in a nearby orchard, where, in a moment of profound despair, he offered a poignant prayer, expressing his weakness and helplessness before God, yet reaffirming his unwavering trust in divine mercy. This rejection from Taif underscored the immense challenges facing his mission and the depth of human resistance to the revolutionary message he carried. It was a stark reminder that the path of prophethood was one paved with hardship and sacrifice. Amidst the despair and rejection, a miraculous event occurred that would reinvigorate Muhammad's spirit and solidify his prophetic status. The Isra and Miraj, the night journey and ascension. This extraordinary experience, believed by Muslims to have taken place physically and spiritually, marked a pivotal moment in Islamic history. The Isra, or night journey, describes Muhammad's miraculous nocturnal travel from the sacred mosque in Mecca to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem, accompanied by the angel Gabriel. This journey was not merely a physical translocation, but a spiritual odyssey, demonstrating God's immense power and Muhammad's unique connection to the divine. In Jerusalem, Muhammad is said to have led all the previous prophets in prayer, a symbolic act that underscored his position as the seal of prophethood and the inheritor of a long lineage of divine messengers. Following the Isra, Muhammad embarked on the Miraj, the ascension, where he was taken through the seven heavens beyond the physical realm to the very presence of God. During this celestial journey, he encountered various prophets, including Adam, Jesus, Moses, and Abraham, each residing in a different heaven, offering greetings and wisdom. At each stage, his understanding of the divine mysteries deepened, and his spiritual connection to God intensified. The pinnacle of the Miraj was his direct communion with God, where the 5 daily prayers were revealed as an obligation for Muslims. This profound spiritual experience served as a divine affirmation of Muhammad's prophethood, providing solace and strength during a period of intense personal and communal hardship. It reinforced his conviction that despite worldly rejections, his mission was divinely ordained and held immense spiritual significance. Upon his return to Mecca, Muhammad recounted his journey, which was met with skepticism and ridicule by the Quraysh, but was immediately believed by his loyal companion Abu Bakr, earning him the title As-Siddiq, the Truthful. The Isra and Miraj became a powerful symbol of faith, endurance, and the boundless possibilities of divine intervention, offering a beacon of hope for the beleaguered Muslim community. The early days of Islam in Mecca were a crucible of faith, forging the nascent community through intense persecution. The Quraysh, perceiving the new religion as an existential threat to their traditional power structures and economic interests, unleashed a campaign of terror against the Muslims, particularly targeting those without tribal protection. Bilal ibn Rabah, an Abyssinian slave, endured unimaginable torment. His master Umayyah ibn Khalaf would drag him into the scorching Meccan desert at the height of noon, placing heavy rocks on his chest and demanding he renounce Muhammad and worship the idols. Yet, through the agony, Bilal's unwavering response was always Ahad, Ahad, one, one, affirming the absolute oneness of God. His steadfastness became a powerful symbol of defiance and faith. Even more tragically, Sumayya bint Khayyat, an elderly slave woman, became the first martyr in Islam. She and her family were subjected to brutal torture by Abu Jahl, one of Islam's fiercest opponents. When she refused to recant her faith, Abu Jahl cruelly speared her, ending her life, but cementing her place in history as a beacon of ultimate sacrifice. Her death, alongside the suffering of countless others, painted a grim picture of the challenges faced by the early believers. They were mocked, beaten, starved, and ostracized, yet their conviction only deepened. The Prophet Muhammad himself, though protected by his uncle Abu Talib for a time, was not immune to abuse. He faced public ridicule, physical assaults, and attempts on his life, enduring each trial with remarkable patience and an unyielding trust in God's plan. As the persecution escalated, the situation became unbearable for many of the vulnerable Muslims. In 615 CE, Muhammad, recognizing the dire straits of his followers and seeking a sanctuary where they could practice their faith freely, advised a group of them to migrate to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia. He described the ruler there, the Negus Najashi, as a just king who would offer protection. This marked the first hijra, or migration, in Islamic history, a testament to the community's willingness to abandon their homes and livelihoods for the sake of their faith. Around 83 men and 18 women, including Uthman ibn Affan and Ruqayya, the Prophet's daughter, embarked on this perilous journey across the Red Sea. They left behind everything they knew, driven by the hope of religious freedom and the promise of a just ruler. Upon their arrival in Abyssinia, the Muslim refugees were indeed received with hospitality by the Negus, a devout Christian. The Quraysh, furious that their victims had found refuge, dispatched ambassadors to Abyssinia with lavish gifts, attempting to persuade the Negus to extradite the Muslims. They painted the Muslims as renegades who had abandoned their ancestral religion and invented a new one that neither aligned with their own nor with Christianity. However, the Negus, known for his wisdom and fairness, granted the Muslims an audience. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and a leader among the emigrants, eloquently presented the teachings of Islam, reciting verses from the Quran that spoke of Jesus and Mary and explaining the core tenets of their faith. Ja'far's powerful account of Islam's message of monotheism, justice, and moral conduct, coupled with his recitation of Surah Maryam, deeply moved the Negus. He recognized the profound similarities between the teachings of Islam and Christianity, particularly their shared belief in one God and the reverence for prophets. The Negus famously drew a line in the sand, declaring that the difference between Islam and Christianity was no more than that line. He unequivocally rejected the Quraysh's demands, affirming the Muslims' right to refuge and protection within his kingdom. This act of justice by a Christian king toward persecuted Muslims was incredibly significant. It not only provided a safe haven for the early community, but also underscored the universal message of Islam, demonstrating that its principles of truth and justice resonated beyond tribal or religious boundaries. It was a profound vindication of their faith and a moment of immense relief and gratitude for the beleaguered Muslims. The Abyssinian migration was more than just a physical relocation. It was a profound spiritual experience that deepened the believers' understanding of their faith. It was a test of their commitment, forcing them to prioritize their religion above all worldly attachments. The willingness to leave behind family, property, and homeland for the sake of God strengthened their resolve and purified their intentions. It fostered a deeper sense of community and solidarity among them, as they faced the unknown together, relying on each other and their shared faith. The experience also served as a powerful lesson in patience and perseverance, illustrating that even in the darkest times, divine relief can come from unexpected sources. Back in Mecca, Muhammad and his remaining companions continued to face relentless pressure, yet their patience remained unbroken. The Prophet's unwavering demeanor, his constant prayer, and his absolute reliance on God served as a constant source of inspiration. He taught his followers the importance of enduring hardship with dignity and grace, reminding them that every trial was an opportunity for spiritual growth and a means to draw closer to God. The verses of the Quran revealed during this period often spoke of patience, steadfastness, and the ultimate triumph of truth, providing solace and strengthening the spiritual bond within the nascent Muslim community. They understood that their suffering was not in vain, but a necessary path toward a greater purpose, a testament to their profound conviction in the message of Islam. The shared adversity forged an unbreakable bond, transforming a disparate group of individuals into a resilient and unified community, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The world outside Mecca, however, was shifting in ways that would soon offer a dramatic turn in Muhammad's mission. The year 620 CE brought a series of profound and miraculous events, beginning with the Isra and Miraj, often translated as the night journey and ascension. This was not a physical journey in the conventional sense, as some might assume, but a spiritual and metaphysical experience of immense significance, occurring during one of the most challenging periods for the nascent Muslim community. It was a divine intervention, a message of solace and confirmation for the Prophet and his followers, revealing the vastness of God's power and the interconnectedness of all divine revelations. The Isra, or night journey, describes Muhammad's miraculous travel from Mecca to Jerusalem, One night, while he was resting near the Kaaba, the angel Gabriel appeared, bringing with him a winged creature called Buraq, which was described as a white animal, larger than a donkey but smaller than a mule, with wings on its sides that propelled it forward. Mounted on Buraq, Muhammad was swiftly transported across the vast desert landscape to Jerusalem, a journey that would typically take weeks by camel. This was not a mere passage through space, but an experience imbued with spiritual profundity. In Jerusalem, at the site of the Temple Mount, Muhammad was said to have led a prayer with a congregation of all the prophets who had come before him, including figures revered in Jewish and Christian traditions such as Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. This communal prayer underscored the continuity of divine revelation, emphasizing that Islam was not a new religion, but the culmination and purification of the same monotheistic message preached by all prior prophets. It was a powerful affirmation of Muhammad's prophethood and his place within this sacred lineage. Following the Isra, the Miraj or Ascension commenced from Jerusalem. From the sacred rock of the Temple Mount, Muhammad ascended through the 7 heavens, guided by the angel Gabriel. Each heaven presented a new spiritual realm and a meeting with various prophets. In the first heaven, he met Adam, the father of humanity. In the second, he encountered John the Baptist and Jesus. Joseph awaited him in the third, Enoch in the fourth, Aaron in the fifth, and Moses in the sixth. Finally, in the 7th heaven, he met Abraham sitting by the Beit al-Mamah, a celestial house parallel to the Kaaba on earth, where angels perpetually worship. These encounters were not simply greetings, they were exchanges of wisdom, blessings, and confirmations of his divine mission. Each prophet acknowledged Muhammad's unique status and the universality of his message. The journey continued beyond the 7th heaven, to a point where even Gabriel could not proceed, indicating the unparalleled proximity Muhammad achieved with the divine presence. He reached the Loti tree of the utmost boundary, Sidrat al-Muntaha, a cosmic tree marking the end of all knowledge and human comprehension. Here, Muhammad experienced direct communication with God, receiving profound revelations and instructions. It was during this intimate communion that the 5 daily prayers, a cornerstone of Islamic practice, were ordained. Initially, 50 daily prayers were prescribed, but through Muhammad's intercession, and with the advice of Moses, the number was reduced to 5, a testament to God's mercy and understanding of human capacity. This event fundamentally shaped the devotional life of Muslims, establishing a direct and constant connection between the believer and the Creator. The significance of the night journey and ascension cannot be overstated. For Muhammad, it was a profound spiritual rejuvenation, a divine embrace during a period of intense personal loss and communal persecution. It provided him with direct evidence of the unseen realms, strengthening his resolve and conviction in the face of relentless opposition. For his followers, it served as a powerful testament to his prophethood, differentiating him from ordinary men and solidifying their faith in the divine origin of his message. While skeptics in Mecca dismissed it as an impossible tale, those with faith saw it as a miracle, further cementing their belief in God's omnipotence and Muhammad's unique status as the final prophet. It was a pivotal moment that uplifted the morale of the Muslim community, reminding them that their struggles were witnessed and their prophet divinely supported. The year 619 CE would forever be etched in the annals of early Islam as the Year of Sorrow, or Al-Ham al-Hazn. It was a period of profound personal tragedy for Prophet Muhammad, a double blow that stripped him of his most steadfast protectors and plunged him into an unprecedented state of vulnerability. First, his beloved wife Khadijah passed away. She had been his first convert, his unwavering emotional support, his confidant, and a source of immense comfort and strength throughout the arduous early years of his prophetic mission. Her death left a gaping void, not just in his heart, but in the very fabric of his daily life and spiritual well-being. Shortly thereafter, his uncle and guardian, Abu Talib, also succumbed to illness. For decades, Abu Talib, despite never embracing Islam himself, had shielded his nephew from the relentless persecution of the Quraysh, his tribal standing and influence acting as an impenetrable barrier against their most malicious schemes. With both Khadijah and Abu Talib gone, Muhammad found himself exposed, bereft of the 2 individuals who had provided him with both personal solace and crucial political protection. The Quraysh, sensing this newfound vulnerability, intensified their hostility, their harassment escalating to a level that made life in Mecca unbearable for the Prophet and his small band of followers. The city, once his home, had become a prison of animosity, desperate for a sanctuary, a place where his message might find fertile ground and his followers could practice their faith in peace. Muhammad turned his gaze towards Taif. This city, nestled in the mountains about 60 miles southeast of Mecca, was a fertile oasis known for its vineyards and temperate climate, and it was home to the Thaqif tribe, a powerful and influential group. Muhammad hoped that the people of Taif, being distinct from the Meccan Quraysh, might be more receptive to his call for monotheism and justice. He embarked on this journey with his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, a journey fueled by hope but shadowed by the heavy cloak of recent losses and the escalating danger in Mecca. He sought not only refuge for himself, but also a new base from which the nascent Islamic community could grow and thrive, a place where the seeds of his divine message could finally take root away from the toxic soil of Meccan opposition. Upon arriving in Taif, Muhammad immediately approached the city's leaders, 3 brothers who were prominent figures of the Thaqif tribe. He presented his message, explaining his prophethood and the divine revelations he had received, appealing to their sense of reason and their potential for spiritual enlightenment. However, his pleas fell on deaf ears. The leaders of Taif not only rejected his message outright, but did so with contempt and scorn. They mocked his claims of prophethood, ridiculed his monotheistic teachings, and dismissed him as a madman or a charlatan. Their rejection was not merely verbal, it quickly escalated into a public spectacle of humiliation and violence. Not content with simply turning him away, they incited the city's populace, particularly its children and slaves, to drive Muhammad and Zayd out of Taif. What followed was a brutal and dehumanizing ordeal. As Muhammad and Zayd attempted to leave the city, they were relentlessly pursued by an angry mob. The crowd pelted them with stones, their jeers and insults echoing through the narrow streets. Muhammad, already weakened by sorrow and the arduous journey, bore the brunt of their fury. He was struck repeatedly, his feet bleeding profusely, his sandals filling with blood. Zayd, attempting to shield the Prophet, also sustained injuries. The stoning continued for miles, until they managed to find temporary refuge in a private orchard belonging to 2 Meccan brothers, Utbah and Shayba, who were from the Quraysh tribe but harbored some sympathy for Muhammad, or at least a sense of tribal decorum. Exhausted, wounded, and utterly dejected, Muhammad collapsed under a grapevine, his heart heavy with grief and despair. The physical pain was immense, but the emotional and spiritual wound of such a brutal rejection, after facing so much loss, was even deeper. He raised his hands in a heartfelt supplication to Allah, a prayer known as the Dua of Taif, pouring out his anguish and helplessness, acknowledging his weakness but reaffirming his unwavering trust in God's power and mercy. He expressed his submission to Allah's will, asking for guidance and strength, and seeking refuge in his divine protection. It was in this moment of profound despair, as Muhammad lay bleeding and broken, that divine comfort descended upon him. While resting in the orchard, a servant named Adas, a Christian from Nineveh, approached him, sent by his masters Utbah and Shayba to offer a plate of grapes. Adas was struck by Muhammad's demeanor and his words. Upon learning that Muhammad was from the same land as the prophet Jonah Yunus, whom Adas revered, he kissed Muhammad's head, hands and feet, recognizing something profound in him. This small act of kindness from a stranger and an outsider was the first glimmer of reassurance after the ordeal. Shortly thereafter, the angel Gabriel appeared to Muhammad, accompanied by the Angel of the Mountains. Gabriel informed Muhammad that if he wished, the Angel of the Mountains could crush the people of Taif between 2 mountains as punishment for their cruelty. But Muhammad, ever the embodiment of mercy and hope, declined, expressing his hope that from their progeny, individuals might emerge who would worship Allah alone. This divine intervention, this offer of retribution coupled with Muhammad's choice of compassion, was a powerful affirmation of his mission and his character. It was a clear sign that Allah had not abandoned him, even in his darkest hour. The experience in Taif, though a devastating defeat on the surface, ultimately strengthened Muhammad's resolve and clarified his path. The rejection, though painful, served to underscore the necessity of seeking support elsewhere, rather than relying on the established powerful tribes of the region. It highlighted the deep-seated resistance he faced and the magnitude of the task ahead. Yet it also proved the unwavering nature of divine support. The divine comfort and reassurance he received after the stoning reaffirmed his conviction that his mission was from God and that ultimate victory belonged to Allah. Even in this moment of apparent failure and immense suffering, there was a profound spiritual victory. The Prophet's unwavering compassion, his rejection of vengeance, and his enduring hope for humanity's guidance, even for those who had wronged him, became a powerful testament to the mercy inherent in his message. This trial, therefore, was not an end but a turning point, redirecting his focus and fortifying his spirit for the challenges that still lay ahead, ultimately leading him towards a new horizon and a different strategy for the propagation of Islam. The new horizon began to manifest itself in an extraordinary series of events, unlike anything Muhammad or his followers had ever experienced, events that transcended the physical realm and offered a profound glimpse into the divine. This period, following the deep despair of Taif and the Year of Sorrow, became known for the Isra and Miraj, the night journey and ascension. It was a miraculous journey, both spiritual and physical, that began one night in Mecca. While accounts vary slightly in their precise details, the core narrative speaks of the Prophet being awakened from his sleep, or perhaps taken from a state of deep contemplation, by the angel Gabriel. He was then presented with a magnificent winged creature known as Burak, swifter than lightning, whose stride reached as far as its eye could see. Mounting Burak, Muhammad was transported from Mecca to Jerusalem, a journey that would have taken weeks by conventional means, yet occurred in a single night. This segment of the journey is known as the Isra. In Jerusalem, at the site of the Temple Mount, then a ruin but revered as the noble sanctuary, he dismounted. Here, a momentous gathering awaited him. He led a prayer service not alone, but as the imam for a congregation of prophets who had come before him, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and many others, standing shoulder to shoulder in spiritual unity. This act symbolized the continuity of the divine message, affirming Islam not as a new religion, but as the culmination and perfection of the monotheistic tradition. It was a powerful affirmation of his prophethood, placing him firmly within the lineage of God's chosen messengers. Following this profound communal prayer, the second part of the journey commenced, the Miraj, or Ascension. From Jerusalem, Muhammad ascended through the 7 heavens, guided by Gabriel. Each heaven presented a new panorama of celestial wonders and spiritual encounters. In the first heaven, he met Adam, the father of humanity. In the second, he encountered John the Baptist and Jesus. Joseph awaited him in the third, Enoch in the fourth, Aaron in the fifth, and Moses in the sixth, each meeting offering wisdom and blessings. Finally, in the 7th heaven, he met Abraham, sitting by the Beit al-Ma'mur, the frequented house, a celestial counterpart to the Kaaba. The journey continued beyond the 7th heaven to the Lote tree of the utmost boundary, Sidrat al-Muntaha, a boundary beyond which even Gabriel could not pass. Here, Muhammad experienced the divine presence directly, a vision of indescribable majesty and light. It was during this ultimate encounter that the command for the 5 daily prayers was firmly established, initially prescribed as 50, then mercifully reduced to 5 through the intercession of Moses, yet retaining the reward of the original 50. This divine communication solidified the central ritual practice of Islam, embedding it directly into the fabric of daily life for all believers. The entire journey, both the Isra and the Miraj, concluded with Muhammad being returned to Mecca to his bed before dawn. The miraculous nature of the event, its speed and its scope, left many in Mecca incredulous when he recounted it the next morning. It became a test of faith for many of his followers, and a point of ridicule for his detractors. Abu Bakr, however, without hesitation, affirmed the Prophet's account, earning him the title As-Siddiq, the Truthful. This event, beyond its miraculous nature, served several critical purposes. It was a profound spiritual rejuvenation for Muhammad, offering him direct divine solace and affirmation after the hardships he had endured. It strengthened the faith of his loyal followers, providing undeniable spiritual evidence of his connection to God. Moreover, it elevated the status of Jerusalem, making it the first Qibla, the direction of prayer before the Kaaba. The miraculous event of Isra and Miraj, the night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, and the subsequent ascent to the heavens, stands as a cornerstone of Islamic belief and a pivotal moment in the Prophet Muhammad's mission. This extraordinary experience, occurring after a period of intense hardship and sorrow, served not only as a profound spiritual journey for Muhammad, but also as a powerful affirmation of his prophethood and a source of immense comfort. It transcended the physical realm, offering a glimpse into the divine mysteries and solidifying the spiritual foundations of Islam. The journey began in Mecca, where the Archangel Gabriel appeared to Muhammad, presenting a heavenly steed named Buraq, a creature swifter than lightning, described as white and smaller than a mule but larger than a donkey, with wings that carried it forward. Muhammad mounted Buraq, and in an instant they were transported to Jerusalem. This initial segment, known as the Isra or night journey, defied all conventional understanding of time and space, covering a distance that would normally take weeks by conventional means, yet occurred in a single night. In Jerusalem, at the site of the Temple Mount, then a ruin but revered as the noble sanctuary, he dismounted. Here, a momentous gathering awaited him. He led a prayer service, not alone, but as the imam for a congregation of prophets who had come before him: Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and many others, standing shoulder to shoulder in spiritual unity. This act symbolized the continuity of the divine message, affirming Islam not as a new religion, but as the culmination and perfection of the monotheistic tradition. It was a powerful affirmation of his prophethood, placing him firmly within the lineage of God's chosen messengers. Following this profound communal prayer, the second part of the journey commenced, the Miraj or Ascension. From Jerusalem, Muhammad ascended through the 7 heavens, guided by Gabriel. Each heaven presented a new panorama of celestial wonders and spiritual encounters. In the first heaven, he met Adam, the father of humanity. In the second, he encountered John the Baptist and Jesus. Joseph awaited him in the third, Enoch in the fourth, Aaron in the fifth, and Moses in the sixth, each meeting offering wisdom and blessings. Finally, in the 7th heaven, he met Abraham, sitting by the Beit al-Ma'mur, the frequented house, a celestial counterpart to the Kaaba. The journey continued beyond the 7th heaven, to the Lote tree of the utmost boundary, Sidrat al-Muntaha, a boundary beyond which even Gabriel could not pass. Here, Muhammad experienced the divine presence directly, a vision of indescribable majesty and light. It was during this ultimate encounter that the command for the 5 daily prayers was firmly established, initially prescribed as 50, then mercifully reduced to 5 through the intercession of Moses, yet retaining the reward of the original 50. This divine communication solidified the central ritual practice of Islam, embedding it directly into the fabric of daily life for all believers. The entire journey, both the Isra and the Miraj, concluded with Muhammad being returned to Mecca, to his bed, before dawn. The miraculous nature of the event, its speed and its scope, left many in Mecca incredulous when he recounted it the next morning. It became a test of faith for many of his followers, and a point of ridicule for his detractors. Abu Bakr, however, without hesitation affirmed the Prophet's account, earning him the title As-Siddiq, the Truthful. This event, beyond its miraculous nature, served several critical purposes. It was a profound spiritual rejuvenation for Muhammad, offering him direct divine solace and affirmation after the hardships he had endured. It strengthened the faith of his loyal followers, providing undeniable spiritual evidence of his connection to God. Moreover, it elevated the status of Jerusalem, making it the first Qibla, the direction of prayer before the Kaaba. The night journey and ascension also carried immense spiritual significance, symbolizing Muhammad's elevated status and direct communion with God. It was a journey not of the body alone, but of the soul, traversing dimensions beyond human comprehension. The encounters with previous prophets were not mere greetings. They were an affirmation of the shared lineage of monotheistic revelation, positioning Muhammad as the seal of prophecy, the one who completed and perfected the divine message. Each prophet he met offered a unique lesson or insight, reinforcing the universality of God's guidance throughout history. Moses in particular played a crucial role in advocating for the reduction of the daily prayers, demonstrating a compassionate concern for the believers and highlighting the mercy inherent in God's commands. This interaction underscores the practical and compassionate aspects of divine legislation, tailored to the capacity of humanity. The divine revelations received during this journey, especially the establishment of the 5 daily prayers, were not arbitrary decrees but fundamental pillars of the Islamic faith. These prayers became a direct link between the believer and God, a constant remembrance and spiritual purification that punctuates the day. The miraculous nature of the journey itself served as a powerful sign, a testament to God's omnipotence and Muhammad's unique relationship with the divine. For Muhammad, who had just experienced the profound losses of Khadija and Abu Talib and the painful rejection in Taif, the Isra and Miraj was a divine embrace, a direct assurance from God that he was not abandoned and that his mission was divinely sanctioned, it renewed his resolve and provided him with the spiritual strength to continue facing the immense challenges of establishing Islam. For his followers, the event was a crucial test of faith. While some wavered, the unwavering belief of figures like Abu Bakr solidified the community's conviction. It separated those who believed in the miraculous and the unseen from those who demanded only empirical proof, thus refining the nascent Muslim community. The mystical and theological implications of this extraordinary experience are profound. It opened the minds of believers to the vastness of God's creation, the existence of multiple heavens, and the possibility of direct, albeit veiled, communion with the divine. It provided a rich tapestry of spiritual imagery and theological concepts that continue to inspire mystics, scholars, and ordinary Muslims to this day. The Isra and Miraj narrative emphasizes the importance of prayer, the continuity of prophecy, the mercy of God, and the ultimate truth that with hardship comes ease, and with divine support even the most insurmountable obstacles can be overcome. It firmly established Muhammad's status as the beloved messenger, whose spiritual journey reached the zenith of divine proximity, bringing back gifts of worship and guidance for all of humanity. The persecution faced by the early Muslim community in Mecca escalated dramatically, making life increasingly untenable for Muhammad and his followers. The Quraysh, seeing the growing influence of Islam as a direct threat to their traditional polytheistic beliefs and their economic dominance, resorted to boycotts, harassment, and violence. The year of sorrow, marked by the deaths of Muhammad's beloved wife Khadija and his protective uncle Abu Talib, left him particularly vulnerable. Without Abu Talib's tribal protection, the Quraysh felt emboldened to intensify their efforts to suppress the new religion. They saw Muhammad's message as an affront to their ancestors and a challenge to the deeply entrenched social order. The economic boycott imposed on the Banu Hashim, Muhammad's clan, had created severe hardship, leading to starvation and deprivation. Muhammad, recognizing the dire situation and the need to protect his community, began to explore options for relocation. He sought refuge in a new base for Islam in various places, including Taif, but was met with hostility and outright rejection. It was during this period of intense adversity that a ray of hope emerged from Yathrib, a city located about 200 miles north of Mecca. Yathrib was home to several warring tribes, including the Ars and Khazraj, and a significant Jewish population. These tribes had heard of Muhammad and his teachings, and some individuals from Yathrib had already embraced Islam during their pilgrimages to Mecca. They saw in Muhammad not just a prophet but a potential arbiter who could bring peace and unity to their fractured city. In a series of secret meetings, known as the Pledges of Aqaba, representatives from Yathrib formally invited Muhammad and his followers to migrate to their city, promising them protection and allegiance. This was a pivotal moment, offering a sanctuary where the nascent Muslim community could flourish without fear of persecution. The decision to leave Mecca, the city of his birth and ancestral home, was not taken lightly. It represented a profound break from the past, an act of ultimate trust in God's plan, and a strategic necessity for the survival of Islam. The Quraysh, upon learning of the planned migration, grew even more desperate. They convened a council where they plotted to assassinate Muhammad, fearing that his departure would only strengthen his movement and pose an even greater threat from a new base. The night of the Hijra, the migration, was fraught with peril. Muhammad, knowing of the assassination plot, meticulously planned his escape. He instructed Ali ibn Abi Talib to sleep in his bed, creating the illusion that he was still there, while he slipped away under the cover of darkness. Accompanied by Abu Bakr, his closest companion, Muhammad embarked on the arduous journey to Yathrib. They took an unconventional route, traveling southwards initially to evade their pursuers, hiding in a cave for 3 days, and relying on a trusted guide. This perilous journey, filled with close calls and divine interventions, became a testament to their faith and determination. The Quraysh, infuriated by Muhammad's escape, offered a substantial reward for his capture, dead or alive, dispatching search parties in every direction. Despite the relentless pursuit, Muhammad and Abu Bakr, guided by divine providence, eventually reached Yathrib. The arrival of Muhammad in Yathrib, which was subsequently renamed Medina al-Nabi, or the City of the Prophet, marked a transformative moment in Islamic history. This event, known as the Hijra, is so significant that it marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. It symbolized not just a physical relocation, but a fundamental shift in the nature of the Muslim community. In Mecca, Islam was a persecuted minority. In Medina, it became the foundation of a new society, a burgeoning political and social order. The Hijra was the turning point, the moment where Islam transitioned from a nascent spiritual movement to a fully fledged self-governing community with its own laws, institutions, and a secure territory. The city of Yathrib, a bustling oasis settlement roughly 200 miles north of Mecca, was a crucible of tribal strife and political instability. For generations, the two dominant Arab tribes, the Aws and the Khazraj, had been locked in a bitter and destructive cycle of warfare. Their conflicts had decimated their populations and resources, leaving them yearning for a neutral arbiter, a figure of wisdom and authority who could transcend their ingrained animosities and unite them. Alongside these Arab tribes, a significant Jewish population also resided in Yathrib, contributing to the city's complex social fabric and diverse religious landscape. The ceaseless internal strife had created a fertile ground for new ideas and a desperate search for solutions, making the city ripe for change. Against this backdrop of turmoil, whispers of a prophet in Mecca began to reach Yathrib. During the annual pilgrimage season, delegates from Yathrib traveled to Mecca, where they encountered Muhammad and his message. They listened to his teachings, observed his unwavering faith, and recognized in him the potential leader they so desperately needed. These initial contacts were cautious yet hopeful, culminating in a series of secret meetings at a place called Aqaba, outside Mecca. It was here that the first and second pledges of Aqaba took place, pivotal moments that would forever alter the course of Islamic history. The first pledge involved a small group of 12 men from Yathrib who secretly embraced Islam and swore allegiance to Muhammad, promising to worship only God, not to steal, commit adultery, or kill their children, and to obey him in all good things. A year later, a much larger delegation of 75 individuals, including 2 women, secretly met with Muhammad, making the second pledge. This was a far more significant commitment, for they not only accepted Islam but also swore to protect Muhammad as they would their own families, inviting him and his followers to migrate to Yathrib and offering them complete sanctuary and leadership. The invitations from Yathrib were nothing short of a divine lifeline for the beleaguered Muslim community in Mecca. For years they had endured relentless persecution, economic boycotts, and constant threats to their lives. The offer of sanctuary meant a new beginning, a chance to practice their faith openly and establish a society founded on Islamic principles. Muhammad, recognizing the immense implications of this invitation, began to instruct his followers to quietly and secretly migrate to Yathrib in small groups. The move had to be meticulously planned and executed under a veil of secrecy, for the Quraysh in Mecca, upon learning of the planned exodus, intensified their persecution and hatched a desperate plot to assassinate Muhammad before he could depart. They understood that his migration would not merely be a relocation, but the establishment of a new center of power that could ultimately challenge their dominance. The Hijra, the migration to Medina, was not a chaotic flight, but a carefully orchestrated movement. Muhammad, aware of the assassination plot, instructed his loyal cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib to sleep in his bed on the night of the planned assassination, using Ali as a decoy to mislead the Quraysh assassins who surrounded his house. While they waited outside, believing Muhammad was asleep, he slipped away under the cover of darkness, accompanied only by his closest companion Abu Bakr. Their journey was perilous and fraught with danger, a testament to their unwavering faith and reliance on divine protection. They did not take the direct route north to Yathrib. Instead, they traveled south, seeking refuge in a cave called Thar for 3 days, allowing the initial fervor of the Quraysh's pursuit to subside. During this time, Abu Bakr's son Abdullah would bring them news from Mecca, and his daughter Asma would bring them food, while a shepherd, Amir ibn Fuhaira, would graze his flock over their tracks to obscure their trail. With the help of a trusted guide, Abdullah ibn Urayqit, who was not Muslim but was known for his reliability, they embarked on an unconventional, lesser-known route to Yathrib, navigating through deserts and difficult terrain, always one step ahead of their pursuers. The journey was a crucible that forged an even deeper bond of trust and faith within the nascent Muslim community. Each step taken towards Yathrib was imbued with a sense of profound hope and the promise of a new dawn. For the persecuted Muslims who had faced unimaginable hardship and suffering in Mecca, the prospect of a safe haven, a place where they could live and worship freely, was a powerful motivator. They envisioned a community built on justice, equality, and the teachings of Islam, a stark contrast to the oppressive environment they were leaving behind. The Hijra symbolized not just a physical relocation, but a spiritual rebirth, a collective act of faith and resilience that laid the groundwork for the future Islamic civilization. It marked the moment Islam transitioned from a besieged spiritual movement to a burgeoning socio-political entity, ready to establish its own laws, institutions, and a secure territory. The arrival in Yathrib, soon to be renamed Medina al-Nabi, or City of the Prophet, was met with an outpouring of joy and relief. The Ansar, the helpers among the Medinan residents who had already embraced Islam, welcomed the Muhajirun, the emigrants from Mecca, with open arms and unprecedented generosity. Homes were shared, resources pooled, and a new community began to take shape, marked by an extraordinary spirit of brotherhood and mutual support. This was not merely a refugee settlement, it was the deliberate construction of a new society, founded on principles of justice, compassion, and communal responsibility. To solidify this nascent society and establish order among the diverse tribal factions and religious groups in Medina, Prophet Muhammad meticulously crafted what became known as the Constitution of Medina. This groundbreaking document, far ahead of its time, was a social contract that outlined the rights and responsibilities of all inhabitants, including Muslims, Jews, and pagans. It established a framework for peaceful coexistence, religious freedom, and mutual defense. Each community was granted autonomy over its internal affairs and religious practices, while collectively agreeing to defend Medina against external threats. This constitution was a masterstroke of diplomacy and governance, transforming a collection of disparate tribes into a unified political entity under the leadership of Prophet Muhammad. It demonstrated his vision for a pluralistic society, where differences could be respected and managed within a larger framework of shared civic responsibility. At the heart of this new community, both physically and spiritually, was the construction of the first mosque in Medina, Masjid an-Nabawi. This was not just a place of worship, it served as the central hub for all community activities. It was a court of justice, a school for religious instruction, a meeting place for political deliberations, and even a hospital for the sick. The Prophet himself participated in its construction, carrying bricks and timber alongside his companions, setting an example of humility and collective effort. This act further solidified the bonds within the community, as everyone contributed to building a shared space that symbolized their collective identity and aspirations. The simplicity of its design, with its mud brick walls and palm frond roof, belied its profound significance as the foundational institution of the nascent Islamic State. Despite the initial triumph of the Hijra and the establishment of a harmonious community in Medina, the early years were not without significant challenges. The Meccans, still seething with resentment and fear at the growing strength of the Muslim community, viewed Medina as a direct threat to their economic and political dominance. Their trade routes, which passed perilously close to Medina, became a point of contention. Furthermore, the economic situation of the Muhajirun, who had left all their possessions behind in Mecca, was precarious. The Ansar, with their unparalleled generosity, helped alleviate immediate needs, but a sustainable economic model was crucial for the long-term survival of the community. This period was a constant balancing act between internal development and external defense, requiring astute leadership and unwavering faith from Prophet Muhammad and his followers. The simmering tensions between Mecca and Medina inevitably erupted into open conflict. The first major confrontation occurred in 624 CE, known as the Battle of Badr. A small, ill-equipped Muslim force numbering around 313 men faced a much larger and better-armed Meccan army of nearly 1,000 warriors. The odds were overwhelmingly against the Muslims, yet under the strategic leadership of Prophet Muhammad, and with a fervent belief in divine assistance, they achieved a miraculous victory. This battle was a pivotal moment in Islamic history, not just for its military outcome, but for its immense psychological impact. It boosted the morale of the Muslims, affirmed their faith, and established their credibility as a formidable force. For the Meccans, it was a humiliating defeat that further fueled their animosity and desire for revenge, ensuring that the conflict was far from over. Just a year later, in 625 CE, The Meccans sought to avenge their defeat at Badr, leading to the Battle of Uhuh. This time, the Muslim army was larger, but a tactical error during the battle, where a group of archers abandoned their defensive positions to collect spoils, turned the tide. The Meccan cavalry, led by Khalid ibn al-Walid, seized this opportunity to flank the Muslim forces, resulting in significant losses, including many prominent companions of the Prophet. Prophet Muhammad himself was wounded during the fierce fighting. Despite the setbacks, the Muslims managed to regroup and prevent a complete rout. But the battle served as a harsh lesson in discipline and adherence to command. It highlighted the importance of unity and obedience, and underscored the fact that even with divine favor, human effort and strategy remained crucial. The Meccans, though victorious, failed to achieve their ultimate objective of annihilating the Muslim community in Medina. The desert night was thick with danger as Muhammad and Abu Bakr slipped out of Mecca, their escape a desperate gamble against the Quraysh's murderous plot. They had left under the cloak of darkness, not even daring to take the direct route to Yathrib, now known as Medina. Instead, they sought refuge in the Cave of Thar, a hidden crevice high in the mountains south of Mecca, where they remained for 3 days, mere feet from their pursuers. A spider wove its web across the cave's mouth, and a dove nested nearby, creating a natural camouflage that miraculously convinced the Quraysh search party that no one could have entered. This perilous journey was a profound act of faith and sacrifice, a final agonizing farewell to the city that had been their home, the place where the Kaaba stood, yet had become a crucible of persecution. Every Muslim who embarked on this journey, the Muhajirun, left behind their homes, their possessions, their livelihoods, and often their families, for the sake of their belief. This emotional departure was not just a physical movement, but a spiritual wrenching, a severing of ties to everything familiar. Muhammad himself, as he looked back at Mecca from the outskirts, is said to have declared his deep love for the city, lamenting that its people had forced him to leave. Yet, the call of faith was stronger than the pull of home. The journey itself was arduous, spanning hundreds of miles of unforgiving desert terrain under the scorching sun, with constant fear of discovery and capture. But the resolve of the companions, fueled by their unwavering trust in God and their Prophet, propelled them forward. They understood the monumental stakes of their mission, not just for themselves, but for the very survival of Islam. Finally, after days of travel filled with both peril and miraculous protection, the exhausted travelers approached Medina. The news of their arrival spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of joy and anticipation among the Ansar, the Medinan helpers who had pledged their allegiance to Islam. The city erupted in celebration, with men, women, and children lining the streets, singing songs of welcome, their voices echoing with relief and jubilation. The air was thick with excitement as Muhammad, riding his camel, entered the city, greeted by outstretched hands and tearful embraces. It was a moment of profound emotional release, a testament to the strength of community and the promise of a new beginning. This was not merely the arrival of a leader, but the dawn of a new era, a testament to the power of shared faith. Upon his arrival, Muhammad immediately set about establishing the foundations of the first Islamic state, a revolutionary model of governance rooted in justice, compassion, and brotherhood. His first act was to oversee the construction of the Prophet's mosque, not just a place of worship, but a community center, a court of law, and a school. He then forged a remarkable bond between the Muhajirun, the Meccan emigrants who had lost everything, and the Ansar, the Medinan hosts who generously shared their wealth, homes, and livelihoods. This act of brotherhood, known as mu'akat, transcended tribal loyalties and economic disparities, creating a unified community built on mutual support and shared purpose. Furthermore, Muhammad drafted the Constitution of Medina, a groundbreaking document that established a pluralistic society, guaranteeing religious freedom for all inhabitants, including the Jewish tribes, and outlining a framework for inter-community relations based on justice and mutual defense. The Hijra, therefore, was far more than a simple migration. It was a watershed moment, a pivotal turning point that irrevocably altered the course of Islamic history and indeed world history. It marked the transition of Islam from a persecuted minority movement to a thriving self-governing community, laying the groundwork for a global civilization. So profound was its significance that it was chosen to mark the beginning of the Islamic calendar, a testament to its enduring legacy. From this moment, Islam began its expansion, not just through military conquest, but through the power of its message, its social justice, and its unwavering commitment to the brotherhood of man. The Hijra was the birth of a new society, a testament to the power of faith to transform not just individuals, but entire communities. The nascent Muslim community in Medina, however, did not enjoy a period of uninterrupted peace. The Quraysh in Mecca, still nursing their grievances and fearing the growing influence of the Muslims, launched a series of attacks designed to crush the new faith in its infancy. These early confrontations, while seemingly small in scale, were monumental in their implications, shaping the military and political landscape of early Islam. The first significant clash was the Battle of Badr in 624 CE, a pivotal moment that pitted a small, ill-equipped Muslim force, numbering around 313 men, against a much larger and better-armed Quraysh army of nearly 1,000. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Muslims, fueled by their faith and led by Muhammad's strategic brilliance, achieved a stunning victory. This triumph at Badr was not merely a military one, it was a profound psychological boost for the Muslims, affirming their belief in divine support and demoralizing their Meccan adversaries. It solidified Muhammad's leadership and demonstrated the potency of a unified community driven by a shared purpose. This victory, however, was followed by a setback at the Battle of Uhud a year later, in 625 CE. Here, a tactical error by a group of Muslim archers, who abandoned their strategic position too early to gather spoils, turned a potential victory into a difficult defeat. Muhammad himself was injured, and many prominent companions were martyred. Uhud served as a harsh but invaluable lesson in discipline, obedience, and the consequences of covetousness, reminding the community that even with divine favor, human actions and adherence to command were crucial. It highlighted the fragility of their position and the relentless opposition they faced, forcing them to learn, adapt, and strengthen their resolve. Then came the Battle of the Trench, also known as the Battle of the Confederates, in 627 CE. This was a siege of Medina by a massive confederation of Meccan and allied tribes, numbering around 10,000 warriors, an unprecedented force for the time. Faced with such overwhelming numbers, Muhammad, acting on the advice of a Persian convert named Salman the Persian, adopted an innovative defensive strategy, the digging of a deep trench around the vulnerable parts of Medina. This ingenious tactic, unknown in Arabian warfare, effectively neutralized the cavalry superiority of the Quraysh, turning the siege into a stalemate. The siege lasted for nearly a month, marked by skirmishes and intense psychological warfare. But ultimately, the severe weather, dwindling supplies, and internal discord among the besieging forces led to their withdrawal. The Battle of the Trench was a decisive defensive victory for the Muslims, demonstrating their resilience, strategic acumen, and the strength of their unity, effectively ending the Meccans' attempts to militarily destroy the Muslim community. It marked a turning point, shifting the balance of power decisively in favor of Medina. These early battles, therefore, were not just isolated conflicts. They were crucible moments that forged the identity and character of the early Muslim community. They tested their faith, their unity, and their leadership, forcing them to confront adversity and grow stronger in the process. Each battle, whether victory or defeat, offered profound lessons in strategy, discipline, and the enduring power of conviction. Through these trials, the Muslims learned to defend themselves, to innovate, and to stand firm against overwhelming odds, paving the way for the eventual expansion of Islam beyond the confines of Medina. The narrative of these struggles became foundational, shaping the understanding of sacrifice, perseverance, and the struggle for justice within the Islamic worldview. Upon arriving in Medina, Muhammad immediately set about the monumental task of forging a cohesive society from disparate elements. The city, previously known as Yathrib, was a complex tapestry of tribal allegiances, rivalries, and religious affiliations, primarily composed of two major Arab tribes, the Aus and the Hazraj, who had been locked in generations of bitter warfare. Alongside several significant Jewish clans, Muhammad's genius lay in his ability to transcend these ancient divisions and lay the groundwork for an entirely new form of community, one bound not by bloodline or geography, but by faith. This was the birth of the Ummah, the unified Muslim community, a revolutionary concept that integrated the Meccan emigrants known as the Muhajirun, who had left behind their homes and possessions for the sake of their faith, with the Medinan helpers, the Ansar, who had welcomed them with open arms and shared their resources. The bond between these two groups was formalized through acts of brotherhood, where individual Muhajiron were paired with individual Ansar, creating familial ties that superseded pre-existing tribal loyalties. Central to this community building was the establishment of the Constitution of Medina, a groundbreaking document that formally outlined the rights and responsibilities of all inhabitants, including Muslims, Jews, and other tribes. This wasn't merely a treaty, it was a foundational charter for a pluralistic society, recognizing the distinct identities of its various components while uniting them under a common framework of justice and mutual defense. It stipulated that all parties were part of one community, the Ummah, and that disputes would be referred to Muhammad for arbitration. Crucially, it guaranteed religious freedom for the Jewish tribes, affirming their right to practice their faith and retain their customs, provided they upheld their end of the agreement to defend Medina against external threats. This document effectively transformed Medina into a city-state, a sanctuary where different faiths and tribes could coexist under a shared legal and ethical code. A stark contrast to the tribal anarchy prevalent elsewhere in Arabia. The physical and spiritual heart of this nascent community was the first mosque, Quba, and then later the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. This was not merely a place for ritual prayer, it was a multifunctional center that served as the focal point for all aspects of community life. Here, Muslims gathered 5 times a day for congregational prayers, reinforcing their collective identity and submission to God. But beyond worship, the mosque functioned as a legislative assembly where decisions affecting the community were debated and made, a court of justice where disputes were settled, and a learning institution where religious knowledge and ethical principles were imparted. It also served as a place of refuge for the needy and a hub for social interaction, fostering a strong sense of belonging and solidarity among the nascent Muslim population. The simple yet profound architecture of the mosque reflected the egalitarian values of Islam, where all stood equal before God, regardless of social status or wealth. A defining characteristic of this new Medinan society was its profound emphasis on social justice and mutual support. Islam sought to dismantle the oppressive social structures of pre-Islamic Arabia, which were marked by rampant tribal feuds, exploitation of the weak, and a stark division between rich and poor. Muhammad actively worked to eliminate these tribal feuds, replacing them with a universal brotherhood, where the well-being of the community took precedence over individual or clan interests. The concept of zakat, a mandatory charitable giving, was institutionalized to ensure the redistribution of wealth and provide a safety net for the poor, the needy, and the vulnerable. Acts of charity and kindness were extolled, and the exploitation of others was condemned. This wasn't abstract idealism, it was a concrete program of social reform that directly addressed the inequities and injustices that plagued Arabian society, laying the foundation for a more equitable and compassionate social order. Under Muhammad's leadership, Medina underwent a radical transformation, evolving from a fractured, conflict-ridden settlement into a thriving and harmonious society governed by Islamic principles. The city became a model for what an Islamic state could be, demonstrating the practical application of divine guidance in all spheres of life. The establishment of justice, the promotion of education, the care for the poor, and the fostering of unity among diverse groups were not just ideals but lived realities. The tribal warfare that had defined Medinan existence for generations was replaced by peace and cooperation, allowing the community to flourish. This transformation was not without its challenges, as external threats and internal tensions still existed, but the foundational principles laid down in these early years provided a resilient framework. The success of this social experiment in Medina became a powerful testament to the transformative power of Islam, attracting more adherents and demonstrating the viability of a society built on faith, justice, and compassion. It was a beacon of hope and a practical example of how a community could organize itself to achieve both spiritual fulfillment and earthly prosperity. The growing strength and influence of the Muslim community in Medina inevitably led to confrontation with the powerful Meccan elite, who viewed Islam as a direct challenge to their economic, social, and religious order. The first major military encounter, the Battle of Badr, occurred in 624 CE, a pivotal moment that cemented the nascent Muslim state's resilience. Outnumbered 3-1, with around 313 ill-equipped Muslims facing a Meccan army of nearly 1,000 seasoned warriors, the odds seemed insurmountable. Yet, under the Prophet Muhammad's leadership and strategic acumen, the Muslims achieved a stunning victory. This triumph was not merely a military success, It was a profound spiritual affirmation, interpreted by believers as divine intervention. It boosted morale, attracted new converts, and demonstrated that faith and unity could overcome overwhelming material disadvantage. The Battle of Badr sent shockwaves through the Arabian Peninsula, signaling that Islam was not a fleeting movement but a formidable force to be reckoned with. However, this victory was followed by a significant setback at the Battle of Ushud in 625 CE. The Meccans, eager for revenge, mounted a larger and better organized expedition. Initial Muslim successes were undone by a tactical error. A contingent of archers positioned to protect the Muslim flank abandoned their posts prematurely to gather spoils, leaving an opening for a Meccan cavalry charge. The tide of battle turned dramatically, resulting in heavy Muslim casualties, including many prominent companions of the Prophet. The Prophet Muhammad himself was wounded during the fierce fighting. Uhud served as a harsh but vital lesson in discipline, obedience, and the consequences of compromising military strategy for personal gain. It highlighted the fragility of even a divinely guided community when human error and disobedience crept in, reinforcing the importance of steadfastness and adherence to instructions. Just 2 years later, in 627 CE, Mecca launched its most ambitious assault yet, known as the Battle of the Trench or the Battle of the Confederates. This time, a coalition of Meccan forces, along with various allied tribes numbering around 10,000 men, marched on Medina, intending to decisively crush the Muslim community. Faced with such an overwhelming force, the Prophet Muhammad, acting on the advice of Salman al-Farsi, adopted an innovative defensive strategy unprecedented in Arabian warfare: the digging of a deep, wide trench around the exposed parts of Medina. This trench, a formidable obstacle, effectively neutralized the Meccan cavalry and siege tactics, turning the prolonged siege into a stalemate. For nearly a month, the two armies faced off across the trench, enduring harsh winter conditions and psychological warfare. The Meccan coalition, unable to breach the defenses and plagued by internal dissensions and dwindling supplies, eventually dispersed, their grand offensive having failed. The Battle of the Trench marked a turning point, demonstrating the Muslims' strategic ingenuity and resilience, and ultimately shattering Meccan hopes of eradicating Islam through military force. It solidified Medina's position as a secure and thriving Islamic state, shifting the balance of power decisively in favor of the Muslims. The nascent Muslim community in Medina faced an existential threat, surrounded by powerful adversaries determined to extinguish their faith. These early years were defined by a series of desperate struggles for survival, where faith, courage, and strategic brilliance were tested against overwhelming odds. The first major confrontation arrived in 624 CE, a little over a year after the Hijra, at the Battle of Badr. This encounter pitted a small, ill-equipped band of approximately 313 Muslims against a well-armed Meccan army of nearly 1,000 seasoned warriors. The Muslims, many of whom were elderly or young, and equipped with only a handful of horses and camels, stood against the might of the Quraysh, who sought to crush Islam once and for all. Under the direct leadership of the Prophet Muhammad, who meticulously organized his forces and prayed fervently for divine assistance, the Muslims engaged in a battle that would become legendary. The Prophet himself, observing the unfolding conflict, threw a handful of pebbles towards the enemy lines, a symbolic act of faith mentioned in the Quran. Despite the numerical disparity, the Muslims fought with an extraordinary resolve, driven by their belief in God and the justice of their cause. The battle culminated in a decisive victory for the Muslims, a triumph that was seen by believers as a direct intervention from God. Many prominent Meccan leaders were killed, and a significant number were taken prisoner. This miraculous victory at Badr was not just a military success, it was a profound spiritual affirmation that boosted the morale of the fledgling Muslim community, attracted new converts, and signaled to the entire Arabian Peninsula that Islam was a formidable force, divinely protected, and destined to endure. It shattered the illusion of Meccan invincibility and announced the arrival of a new power in the region. However, the taste of victory at Badr was soon followed by a bitter lesson at the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE. The Meccans, burning with a desire for revenge and seeking to reclaim their lost prestige, assembled a larger and better organized army, numbering around 3,000 men, and marched on Medina. The Muslim forces, numbering about 1,000, initially gained the upper hand, pushing back the Meccan lines. A crucial strategic error, however, turned the tide of the battle. The Prophet Muhammad had strategically positioned a contingent of archers on a hill overlooking a pass, with strict instructions not to abandon their post regardless of the battle's progression. Yet, seeing the initial Muslim successes and believing the battle was won, many of these archers descended from their position to collect spoils of war. This created a critical opening, which the Meccan cavalry commander Khalid ibn al-Walid swiftly exploited. He led a devastating charge through the undefended pass, encircling the Muslim army from the rear. The sudden attack threw the Muslim ranks into disarray, transforming their initial victory into a desperate struggle for survival. Heavy casualties ensued, and many prominent companions of the Prophet were martyred. The Prophet Muhammad himself was gravely wounded, taking a blow to his face and losing a tooth, and rumors of his death spread briefly, further demoralizing the Muslims. It was a moment of profound crisis for the young community. Despite the heavy losses and the tactical defeat, the Battle of Yushu served as an invaluable, albeit painful, lesson. It underscored the critical importance of discipline, obedience to leadership, and the dire consequences of prioritizing worldly gains over strategic directives. It taught the Muslims that even with divine favor, human error and disobedience could lead to setbacks, reinforcing the need for unwavering steadfastness and adherence to the Prophet's instructions. This setback, while costly, ultimately strengthened the community's resolve and refined their understanding of the challenges inherent in their mission. Just 2 years later, in 627 CE, the Muslim community faced its most formidable challenge yet in the Battle of the Trench, also known as the Battle of the Confederates. The Quraysh of Mecca, determined to utterly annihilate Islam, formed a massive coalition with several allied tribes, amassing an army of around 10,000 warriors, an unprecedented force in Arabian history. This vast confederacy marched on Medina, intending to lay siege to the city and decisively crush the Muslim state. Faced with an enemy force that outnumbered them by more than 3-1, the Prophet Muhammad convened a council of war. It was at this crucial juncture that Salman al-Farsi, a Persian companion, proposed an innovative defensive strategy previously unknown in Arabian warfare: the digging of a deep, wide trench around the exposed northern flanks of Medina, where the city was vulnerable to cavalry charges. Despite the immense labor involved, the entire Muslim community, including the Prophet himself, worked tirelessly for days to dig the trench. This ingenious defensive barrier proved to be a stroke of strategic genius. When the massive Confederate army arrived, they were confronted by an impassable obstacle that effectively neutralized their cavalry, their most potent weapon. The siege that followed lasted for nearly a month, a grueling period of psychological warfare. Skirmishes across the trench and enduring harsh winter conditions, the Confederate forces, unable to breach the defenses and frustrated by the stalemate, began to suffer from dwindling supplies and internal dissensions. The prolonged siege, coupled with a severe storm that ravaged their encampments, ultimately broke the morale of the besieging army. The Confederates, their grand offensive having failed spectacularly, eventually dispersed and retreated. The Battle of the Trench was a monumental triumph for the Muslims, achieved primarily through strategic defense and unity rather than direct confrontation. It demonstrated the Muslims' ingenuity, resilience, and their ability to withstand an existential threat. This victory marked a decisive turning point in the struggle between Mecca and Medina, shattering the Quraysh's hopes of eradicating Islam through military force and firmly establishing Medina as a secure and thriving Islamic state. The balance of power in the Arabian Peninsula shifted decisively in favor of the Muslims, who had proven their capacity not only to survive, but to outmaneuver and overcome their most powerful enemies. These early military encounters, from the miraculous victory at Badr to the strategic defense at the Trench, were not wars of conquest, but desperate battles fought for the very survival and protection of the nascent Muslim community. They forged a community characterized by unwavering faith, courage, and an indomitable spirit in the face of existential threats, embodying the defensive nature of their early struggles. Despite the clear victory at the Battle of the Trench, the Muslims were still technically at war with Mecca, a state of affairs that presented both practical and spiritual challenges. The annual pilgrimage to the Kaaba, a sacred duty for all Muslims, remained inaccessible due to Meccan hostility. In 628 CE, 6 years after the Hijrah, the Prophet Muhammad decided to undertake the pilgrimage, known as Umrah, not as a military conquest, but as a peaceful demonstration of faith, He set out from Medina with approximately 1,400 unarmed companions, dressed in the traditional pilgrim attire, signaling their non-aggressive intentions. Their destination was Mecca, with the sole purpose of performing the rituals of the Umrah. This peaceful procession, however, was met with suspicion and apprehension by the Quraysh, who viewed any Muslim presence near Mecca as a threat. As the Muslim contingent approached Mecca, they were blocked by Meccan forces at a place called Hudaybiyah, just outside the sacred city. A tense standoff ensued, with both sides reluctant to initiate hostilities, yet unwilling to fully trust the other. The Prophet Muhammad, ever the pragmatist and visionary leader, sought a diplomatic resolution rather than a confrontation. After prolonged negotiations, often fraught with difficulty and distrust, a treaty was finally agreed upon between the Muslims and the Quraysh. This agreement, known as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, initially appeared to be heavily unfavorable to the Muslims, containing several clauses that seemed to compromise their position and dignity. One of the most contentious clauses was that Muslims would not be allowed to perform the Umrah that year, but would have to return to Medina and postpone their pilgrimage until the following year. Furthermore, any Meccan who fled to Medina would be returned to Mecca, while any Muslim who fled to Mecca would not be returned to Medina. The treaty also stipulated a 10-year truce, during which hostilities between Mecca and Medina would cease. Perhaps the most challenging clause for many of the companions to accept was the agreement that the Prophet Muhammad would remove the title Messenger of God from the treaty document. At the insistence of the Meccan representative, Suhail ibn Amr, to many of the companions these terms felt like an insult and a severe setback, causing considerable dismay and even anger among some of the most devoted followers, including Umar ibn al-Khattab, who openly questioned the Prophet's decision. Yet, Muhammad, with his profound foresight and strategic wisdom, saw beyond the immediate implications of the treaty. He understood that this seemingly disadvantageous peace was, in fact, a profound strategic victory. The 10-year truce, despite its harsh conditions, provided a crucial period of peace and stability. For the first time, Mecca officially recognized the Muslim state in Medina as a legitimate political entity, rather than merely a rebellious faction. This recognition was monumental, elevating the status of Islam and its followers in the eyes of the entire Arabian Peninsula. The cessation of hostilities allowed the nascent Muslim community to consolidate its power, expand its influence through peaceful means, and engage in vigorous da'wah or proselytization without the constant threat of war. The clause allowing Meccans to join the Muslims in Medina, but not vice versa, also proved to be a strategic advantage. While seemingly one-sided, it inadvertently created an environment where those who truly believed in Islam and sought refuge in Medina would be tested in their resolve, strengthening the core of the Muslim community. Conversely, the absence of returning Muslims from Mecca meant that any who chose to abandon Islam and return to Mecca would not weaken the community in Medina. The treaty also opened up trade routes and facilitated greater interaction between Muslims and other tribes, leading to a significant increase in conversions to Islam. Within the 2 years following Hudaybiyah, the number of people who embraced Islam was greater than in the entire period before the treaty, demonstrating its profound impact on the peaceful spread of the faith. This period of peace allowed the Prophet Muhammad to focus on diplomatic engagements with other tribes and regional powers. He dispatched envoys to various rulers, including the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, the Persian Emperor Khosrow II, the Negus of Abyssinia, and the ruler of Egypt, inviting them to embrace Islam. While not all these invitations were accepted, they marked a significant shift in the Muslim community's self-perception, from a localized tribal movement to a universal message intended for all humanity. These diplomatic overtures further solidified the growing recognition and respect for Muhammad's leadership and the rising power of Islam on the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. The strategic wisdom of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah became undeniably clear when, just 2 years after its signing, a violation by the Quraysh's allies provided the pretext for the peaceful conquest of Mecca. The Banu Bakr, allies of the Quraysh, attacked the Banu Khuzar, who had allied with the Muslims. This act directly violated the terms of the treaty, particularly the clause ensuring non-aggression between the allied tribes. Recognizing this breach, the Prophet Muhammad mobilized a large army of approximately 10,000 companions. In 630 CE, this formidable force marched towards Mecca. The sheer size and disciplined approach of the Muslim army, combined with the strategic leadership of Muhammad, left the Quraysh with little option but to surrender. The Prophet Muhammad entered Mecca not as a conqueror seeking revenge, but as a liberator offering amnesty. He declared a general amnesty for almost everyone in Mecca, including those who had persecuted him and his followers for years. This act of unparalleled mercy and forgiveness profoundly impacted the hearts and minds of the Meccans. Instead of bloodshed and retribution, they witnessed compassion and justice. The idols within the Kaaba were systematically removed and destroyed, symbolizing the triumph of monotheism over polytheism, but no one was forced to convert. The peaceful conquest of Mecca marked a pivotal moment in the history of Islam. It validated the Prophet Muhammad's long-term vision and the strategic genius behind the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The city that had once expelled him and his followers now welcomed him back as its leader. This event not only solidified the Muslim state's position as the dominant power in Arabia, but also showcased the moral and ethical principles of Islam. Forgiveness, justice, and the peaceful propagation of faith. The conversion of many Meccans, including prominent figures who had previously been staunch opponents, demonstrated the power of example and the compelling truth of the message. Following the fall of Mecca, other tribes across the Arabian Peninsula, seeing the clear shift in power and the magnanimity of the Muslim leadership, began to send delegations to Medina, pledging their allegiance to the Prophet Muhammad and embracing Islam. This period saw a rapid expansion of the Muslim state through alliances, treaties, and voluntary conversions, rather than through sustained military campaigns. The Prophet Muhammad, now firmly established as the undisputed leader of Arabia, dedicated his remaining years to consolidating the Islamic State, establishing just governance, and further propagating the message of Islam. The shift from conflict to peaceful expansion and diplomatic engagement, initiated by the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, culminated in the near-complete unification of the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of Islam, paving the way for its future growth and influence far beyond its borders. The seemingly disadvantageous treaty had truly been a triumph in disguise, a testament to the Prophet's profound wisdom and unwavering faith in God's plan. The Quraysh violated the Treaty of Hudaybiyah when their allies, the Banu Bakr, attacked the Banu Khuzar, who were allied with the Muslims. This breach of the two-year-old peace could not be ignored. Prophet Muhammad, demonstrating strategic foresight, prepared for a major expedition. He mobilized an army of 10,000 companions, an unprecedented force, and silently marched towards Mecca in 630 CE. This was not merely a punitive expedition. It was a return, a reclaiming of Islam's birthplace. The sheer size of the Muslim army, combined with surprise and meticulous planning, made Quraysh resistance futile. As Muslim forces approached, the Meccans saw the overwhelming numbers and disciplined advance, recognizing the futility of armed confrontation. Prophet Muhammad did not enter Mecca as a vengeful conqueror. Instead, his entrance was marked by extraordinary magnanimity and forgiveness. He declared a general amnesty for almost all inhabitants, disarming not only their weapons but their hearts. Even his fiercest persecutors were offered safety and peace. This unparalleled mercy contrasted sharply with the era's norms of warfare, profoundly impacting the Meccan populace. A symbolic act upon entering Mecca was the cleansing of the Kaaba, the ancient sanctuary built by Abraham, which had been desecrated by centuries of idolatry. Prophet Muhammad and his companions systematically removed and destroyed the 360 idols. With each idol that fell, a declaration of pure monotheism resonated. This was a spiritual purification, restoring the Kaaba to its original purpose as a house of worship dedicated solely to the one God. The idols represented a polytheistic worldview Islam superseded. Their removal symbolized the triumph of divine unity over pagan multiplicity, marking a profound spiritual transformation. The general amnesty reflected Islam's core values: mercy, forgiveness, and justice. He famously declared, "Those who enter Abu Sufyan's house are safe. Those who lock their doors are safe. Those who enter the Kaaba are safe." Abu Sufyan, a leading antagonist, found his house designated as a sanctuary, underscoring the Prophet's desire for reconciliation. This forgiveness was a deeply ingrained principle, showing that victory in Islam was about winning hearts and minds through moral superiority and compassion. This approach facilitated a peaceful transition and allowed for the rapid integration of Meccans, many embracing Islam voluntarily after witnessing such profound mercy. The conquest of Mecca held deep emotional significance. For Prophet Muhammad and his companions, it was a triumphant return to their homeland, from which they had been forced to flee during the Hijra. It culminated years of struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. Mecca, Islam's birthplace, was liberated from idolatry under the banner of divine unity. The atmosphere was one of awe and humility, not arrogance. The Prophet entered the city with his head bowed in gratitude, demonstrating profound humility despite his monumental achievement. This event solidified Islam's position as the dominant spiritual and political force in the Arabian Peninsula, paving the way for its rapid expansion and the unification of diverse tribes under a common faith. It underscored perseverance, strategic patience, and the boundless mercy inherent in Islam's message. After the conquest of Mecca, other Arabian tribes, witnessing the Muslim community's strength and moral authority, sent delegations to Medina. This year of delegations marked a pivotal moment, signaling the peaceful unification of diverse and often warring Arabian tribes under Islam. These delegations came from various ethnic groups and tribal confederations. The Prophet received them with wisdom, explaining Islam's tenets and establishing treaties for peace and respect. He understood true unity transcended political submission, requiring spiritual alignment and shared values. This widespread acceptance of Islam was not solely due to military might. It was profoundly influenced by Prophet Muhammad's consistent justice, compassion, and unwavering commitment to monotheism. Tribal leaders observed how the Muslim community, despite its growing power, upheld fairness, protected the vulnerable, and promoted social harmony. The Prophet's example, and that of the nascent Islamic State, resonated deeply with a people accustomed to cycles of tribal warfare and blood feuds. Islam offered a new paradigm of brotherhood, equality, and a comprehensive ethical framework promising stability. This period of unification laid the groundwork for Islam's future expansion beyond Arabia, demonstrating its inherent appeal when embodied by just and compassionate leadership. In the 10th year after the Hijra, around 632 CE, Prophet Muhammad undertook his final pilgrimage to Mecca, known as the Farewell Pilgrimage. This journey was deeply symbolic, serving as a comprehensive summation of his prophetic mission and a final teaching moment. An estimated 100,000 to 120,000 Muslims accompanied him, a vast congregation witnessing his last public pronouncements. The sheer scale underscored Islam's immense growth. On Mount Arafat, he delivered a sermon that would echo through centuries, a powerful testament to Islam's universal principles. This farewell sermon, often regarded as a human rights manifesto, touched on critical themes. He emphasized the sanctity of human life and property, declaring all Muslims as brothers and sisters with no racial or social superiority. He condemned injustice, usury, and pre-Islamic blood feuds. He reminded followers of their duties toward women, urging kindness and respect, and highlighted the importance of upholding family ties. He stressed God's uniqueness, warning against idolatry, and urged adherence to the Quran and his Sunnah as guiding principles. He famously asked, "Have I conveyed the message?" And they responded with a resounding yes. He then declared, "O Allah, bear witness." This sermon provided a moral and ethical blueprint for nascent Islamic civilization, ensuring its core values would endure. Shortly after the farewell pilgrimage, Prophet Muhammad fell ill, and his health rapidly deteriorated. The news spread through Medina, casting a pall of anxiety and grief. People gathered heavy-hearted, realizing that the man who transformed their lives was departing. His final days were spent with his wife Aisha and closest companions, offering counsel and comfort, and leading prayers from his sickbed. On the 12th day of Rabi al-Awwal, in the 11th year of the Hijra, corresponding to June 8th, 632 CE, Prophet Muhammad passed away in Medina. The news plunged the community into deep sorrow and disbelief. Many, particularly Umar ibn al-Khattab, found it hard to accept. Abu Bakr, the Prophet's closest friend, brought calm by reciting Quranic verses, reminding them that Muhammad was a messenger, and messengers before him had passed away. He famously declared, "Whoever worshipped Muhammad, let him know that Muhammad has died, but whoever worshipped Allah, let him know that Allah is ever living and never dies." This powerful statement anchored the community in their faith, reminding them their devotion was to God alone, and Islam's message would endure. The Prophet Muhammad was buried in his house, now part of the Masjid an-Nabawi in Medina. His passing marked an end of an era, but also the beginning of a new chapter for Islam, as the community faced the challenge of carrying his legacy to the world. The final years of Prophet Muhammad's life were a period of remarkable consolidation and widespread acceptance of Islam across the Arabian Peninsula. Following the peaceful conquest of Mecca and the subsequent year of delegations, tribal leaders from across the vast desert lands journeyed to Medina, pledging their allegiance and embracing the new faith. This era saw the Islamic State flourish, with Medina serving as its vibrant capital, a hub of justice, learning, and spiritual devotion. Muhammad, now firmly established as both a spiritual and political leader, oversaw the administration of this burgeoning community, dispatching envoys, receiving delegations, and solidifying the social and legal framework of Islam. His teachings resonated deeply, transforming a fragmented society into a cohesive, unified entity bound by common faith and purpose. In the 10th year after the Hijrah, around 632 CE, Prophet Muhammad undertook his final pilgrimage to Mecca, an event forever etched in history as the Farewell Pilgrimage, or Hajjat al-Wada. This journey was deeply symbolic, serving as a comprehensive summation of his prophetic mission and a final teaching moment for an entire generation. An estimated 100,000 to 120,000 Muslims accompanied him, a vast congregation that underscored Islam's immense growth and influence. As they gathered, a profound sense of anticipation filled the air, for many understood this would be their last opportunity to learn directly from the Prophet. On the plains of Arafat, a sacred site during the pilgrimage, he delivered a sermon that would echo through centuries, a powerful testament to Islam's universal principles and a blueprint for humanity. The farewell sermon, delivered from Mount Arafat, was a masterful articulation of Islam's core tenets and values, often regarded as a human rights manifesto far ahead of its time. With a voice that carried across the vast multitude, Muhammad emphasized the sanctity of human life and property, declaring all Muslims as brothers and sisters, intrinsically equal, with no racial or social superiority. He unequivocally condemned injustice, usury, and the pre-Islamic blood feuds that had plagued Arabian society for centuries, urging his followers to abandon such practices. He reminded them of their duties toward women, advocating kindness and respect, and highlighted the importance of upholding family ties and caring for the vulnerable. Crucially, he stressed the absolute uniqueness and oneness of God, warning against any form of idolatry or association with the divine, thus solidifying the bedrock of monotheism. He urged strict adherence to the Quran and his Sunnah, his practices and sayings, as the sole guiding principles for their lives. At the sermon's conclusion, he famously asked the assembled masses, "Have I conveyed the message?" And they responded with a resounding yes. He then declared, "O Allah, bear witness." This momentous occasion provided a comprehensive moral and ethical blueprint for nascent Islamic civilization, ensuring its core values would endure long after his physical presence. The profound emotional impact of the farewell pilgrimage was palpable, marking a poignant moment for the entire Muslim community. As the Prophet delivered his final sermon, many in the vast congregation sensed the approaching end of his prophetic mission. Tears flowed freely among those who had dedicated their lives to his cause, recognizing the finality of his words and the impending departure of their beloved leader. There was a pervasive sense of completion, a feeling that the divine message had been fully delivered, the religion perfected, and the community firmly established. Yet, this completion also brought with it the bittersweet understanding that their direct guidance from the Prophet was drawing to a close. The pilgrimage was not merely a series of rituals, it was a powerful affirmation of the legacy he was leaving behind for humanity, a comprehensive framework for life that transcended time and place. It was a final, tender moment of communion between a prophet and his people, sealing the covenant of faith and responsibility that would be carried forward through generations. The verses of the Quran revealed during this period, particularly those affirming the completion of God's message, resonated deeply with the collective consciousness. The declaration, "This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and approved for you Islam as religion," was not just a theological statement, it was a profound emotional anchor. It confirmed that the spiritual journey which had begun with Adam and culminated with Muhammad had reached its ultimate destination. This realization brought both immense comfort and a heavy sense of responsibility. Believers understood that the divine blueprint for human existence was now fully laid out, requiring their unwavering commitment to its principles. The finality of the revelation underscored the urgency of adherence and the gravity of their role as custodians of this perfected faith. It was a moment of both triumph and sober reflection, acknowledging the immense gift bestowed upon them and the solemn duty to uphold it. Shortly after the farewell pilgrimage, a profound shift began to unfold in Medina. The Prophet Muhammad, who had led his community with unparalleled vigor and wisdom for over 2 decades, started to experience a debilitating illness. His health steadily declined, marked by severe headaches, fevers, and increasing weakness. Each day brought a visible weakening of his physical form, yet his spirit remained steadfast, his concern for his community undiminished. He continued to lead prayers as long as his strength allowed, even when he had to be supported by his companions. The atmosphere in Medina grew heavy with apprehension and sorrow as the community watched their beloved leader succumb to the ravages of sickness. The air was thick with prayers and quiet pleas, as people desperately hoped for a miraculous recovery, unwilling to confront the inevitable. In his final days, the Prophet Muhammad offered poignant counsel and reassurances to his companions. He emphasized the importance of unity, justice, and compassion, reiterating the core tenets of Islam. He spoke of the transient nature of this world and the eternal reward awaiting those who lived righteously. He urged them to hold fast to the Quran and his Sunnah, his traditions and practices, as their guiding lights. Even in his weakened state, his words carried immense weight and clarity, serving as a final testament to his life's mission. He freed his remaining slaves, gave away his few possessions, and ensured that any debts he owed were settled. These actions exemplified his commitment to justice and fairness until his very last breath, leaving no ambiguity about the values he held most dear. His final moments were spent in prayer, a testament to his lifelong devotion and his unwavering connection to the divine. On the 12th day of Rabi al-Awwal, in the 11th year after the Hijrah, the Prophet Muhammad passed away in Medina, in the arms of his beloved wife Aisha. The news struck the Muslim community like a thunderbolt, plunging them into a state of profound grief and disbelief. Many could not fathom a world without his direct presence, his reassuring voice, and his unparalleled guidance. Some, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, were so overcome with emotion that they initially refused to accept his death, proclaiming that he had merely gone to meet his Lord and would return. However, Abu Bakr, a close companion and the first caliph, calmly addressed the distraught community, reminding them of the Quranic verse, "Muhammad is no more than a messenger, and indeed messengers have passed away before him. If he should die or be killed, will you turn back on your heels?" His words, though somber, brought a necessary dose of reality and stability to the chaotic moment. The passing of the Prophet Muhammad marked the end of an era, but it was also the beginning of Islam's enduring legacy. His death did not signify the end of the message, but rather the perfection of its delivery and the commencement of its global spread. The community, though heartbroken, understood that the mission now rested upon their shoulders. They had been equipped with a complete divine revelation, an exemplary model in his life, and a clear framework for societal and individual conduct. The immediate aftermath was a period of immense challenge, as the nascent Muslim state grappled with succession and internal tensions. Yet the foundational principles he had instilled, the spiritual unity he had forged, and the moral compass he had provided, proved resilient enough to navigate these turbulent waters. His life, from his humble beginnings to his prophetic mission, and finally to his peaceful departure, left an indelible mark on human history, transforming not only the Arabian Peninsula but also setting in motion a spiritual and cultural revolution that continues to shape the world today. On the 12th day of Rabi al-Awwal, in the 11th year after the Hijrah, the Prophet Muhammad passed away in Medina, in the arms of his beloved wife Aisha. The news struck the Muslim community like a thunderbolt, plunging them into a state of profound grief and disbelief. Many could not fathom a world without his direct presence, his reassuring voice, and his unparalleled guidance. Some, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, were so overcome with emotion that they initially refused to accept his death, proclaiming that he had merely gone to meet his Lord and would return. However, Abu Bakr, a close companion and the first caliph, calmly addressed the distraught community, reminding them of the Quranic verse, "Muhammad is no more than a messenger, and indeed messengers have passed away before him. If he should die or be killed, will you turn back on your heels?" His words, though somber, brought a necessary dose of reality and stability to the chaotic moment. The passing of the Prophet Muhammad marked the end of an era, but it was also the beginning of Islam's enduring legacy. His death did not signify the end of the message, but rather the perfection of its delivery and the commencement of its global spread. The community, though heartbroken, understood that the mission now rested upon their shoulders. They had been equipped with a complete divine revelation, an exemplary model in his life, and a clear framework for societal and individual conduct. The immediate aftermath was a period of immense challenge, as the nascent Muslim state grappled with succession and internal tensions. Yet the foundational principles he had instilled, the spiritual unity he had forged, and the moral compass he had provided, proved resilient enough to navigate these turbulent waters. His life, from his humble beginnings to his prophetic mission, and finally to his peaceful departure, left an indelible mark on human history, transforming not only the Arabian Peninsula but also setting in motion a spiritual and cultural revolution that continues to shape the world today. The challenge of succession was immediate and profound. With the Prophet gone, the community had to decide who would lead them, eventually leading to the establishment of the Caliphate. Starting with Abu Bakr, this new form of leadership ensured the continuity of the Islamic State and the preservation of its core principles. The impact of Muhammad's life and teachings extended far beyond his immediate followers. His message ushered in an era of unprecedented intellectual and scientific advancement, laying the groundwork for what would become the Islamic Golden Age. Scholars, artists, and innovators flourished under the guidance of Islamic principles, contributing immensely to fields like medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, enriching global civilization in countless ways. His teachings fostered a civilization built on the pursuit of knowledge, the importance of justice, and the cultivation of compassion. At the heart of his message lay the unwavering call to submission to one God, Allah, and the pursuit of a life guided by divine principles. Justice, compassion, knowledge, and humility became the cornerstones of Islamic society. These principles, articulated in the Quran and exemplified in his Sunnah, continue to inspire and guide billions across the globe. They speak to the universal human desire for meaning, purpose, and a just society. The Prophet Muhammad's journey was not merely a historical event, it was a testament to the transformative power of faith and the enduring human capacity for spiritual growth. His message, transcending time and geography, remains a beacon for those seeking guidance, a source of solace for the distressed, and a call to action for those striving to build a better world. The journey of faith he initiated continues, a vibrant and dynamic testament to the eternal relevance of his life.